Welcome, everyone, to tonight's Wednesday Night Live show. Our guest tonight is Kim Skip Murray. Skip is a research fellow at the Consumer Center of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. You can find Kim's latest article. Kim, you want me to call you Skip or Kim?
Oh, please call me Skip.
Skip, you got it. Skip's latest articles are on Filler. I will have links to those. They're actually in all the links to anything that Skip is involved in is in the show header, guys. So, and I will also be posting the links in the chat throughout the show, so you guys can head on over there and read some of her articles. But before we do that, well, this is going to be a quick hellos. Let's say hello to my teammates, my team host, and I guess we'll start off with Tim.
Wait, you know what? It's fun. The moment you say that, look, the door knocks, and look who decides to show up. I'll comment on my week. It's
hello, my dear.
Hello.
I'll comment on my week. It's been pretty much like every week. It's get up, work, go to the pool, come back, do some more work, go to the pool. I've still been battling. So I guess context. We've had some brazen teenagers down at the pool who decided to turn the pool into their weed den.
Yeah.
And that's been fun to tinker with to the point now where I actually had to confront them, not for weed, but bringing their car down to the pool and then emptying all the trash in the car out onto the parking lot and then leaving.
Oh, adolescence.
I know. But other than that, it's been a pretty smooth week. You know, I've just been kind of doing my thing, working hard and hardly working.
You guys, I saw the map. So I think Georgia was part of the heat wave, right? You guys were part of this last week's heat wave.
They don't call it Hotlanta for no reason, John.
That's true. Well, I didn't know if you were part of that. I don't know how far it stretched down south.
Well, it is. And it is muggy and hot here. But and with all due respect to all the other areas that were hit by any particular heat wave, whether it was somewhat north of me or somewhat to the south or west of me, there's nothing unique about the heat in Atlanta. Okay. I'm just letting everybody know. Like, I think maybe there was just some overly sensitive people that moved from really cold areas to Georgia a long time ago. And they started this rumor that it's really hot in Atlanta. I can tell you this much. It's as hot in Georgia or in my area anyway, as it is like back in Virginia or what it might be like down into the, panhandle of Florida or something like that. We're not on the freaking
I'm going to give you
equator,
a judge's ruling on this one in a minute, but go ahead.
We're not on the freaking equator, people. I mean, the imaginary line exists, but it's not running through Georgia.
Yeah, no, I feel sorry for all those people.
There isn't, as far as I know, a part of the lower 48 that is next to the equator. So we're, relative here.
Yeah.
No,
it's hot.
The dramaticism of people to, I guess, wear this badge of honor that they live in Georgia and it's hot Atlanta. Like, it's almost too overbearing for them to contend with. It's not unique. It's not exclusive.
Yeah. Poor Skip lives under ice for I don't know how many months out of the year, and she's sitting there like listening to you bozo. Anyway,
actually, I used to live in Georgia.
What part?
Augusta, and I lived by Biloxi, Mississippi. I'm an Air Force brat.
There you go.
I went to Biloxi when I was a little kid on a marine biology trip, and I thought it was the coolest place I had ever been in my entire life. I still might.
I remember big snakes and big bugs.
Yep.
We got those.
They have those too. But
Phillip,
they have this
how's
great
your week going, Phillip?
It's great. I am back from Jackson, Mississippi. More's the pity. And I went to go see my brother and my nephew and my sister-in-law, and it was really great. It was great to see him. I miss the kid. It's weird.
Yeah. Did you do anything fun?
I taught him how to serve a ping pong, and we got into how the pawns move on the chessboard. That's progress, I think.
Yeah, that's progress. And Skip, how's
He's
your
only
week going?
6.
Busy. I'm
Busy.
working 26 days in a row at my group home job, and every spare second it's something to do with nicotine. So I'm not bored.
No, you're not. You're not bored at all. This part of the show is Timmy's spot. Timmy, you know what's coming up.
I think I do. I think I do. I hear my. It's like my bat signal or something that goes off in the back. It's my bat. It's my Swifty siren. That's exactly what that is. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live show. And let's go down the roster and see what wonderful faces are in the chat with us. Let's play. Why am I hearing music? Is that you?
That's what this is a new feature for you doing. Yeah, the intro.
Oh, okay. So I'm waiting for somebody to go. Shaft.
Hey, buddy.
Well, let's go down the roster and say hello to all the wonderful faces. So, kind of like Romper Room, we got out the special mirror. So, Tom Morowitz right at the top of the list. Good to see you, Tom. Been a while. Did I see you last week, Tom? I don't believe we did see you last week. So it's good to have you back, sir. Good to have you back. Addie Tooney, always good to see you, sir, in the chat hanging out. Pam Spraggins in the house. How are you, Pam? Great to see you. Hold on, let me keep going. There's Janine Timmons. Janine, are you related to Andy Timmons? I just have to ask the question. If you are a rock and roll fan and you followed the band Danger back in the 80s and the early 90s, they had a very accomplished guitar player named Andy Timmons. If you don't know who he is, check out his work. He's a fantastic guitar player. All right, let's move on down the list. Rog. We got Rog in the house. Got a lot of pirate sounding names in here. So Rog. We got Rog in the house. Good to see you, Rog. I'm just making sure I don't skip anybody.
Hey,
James R.
Real quick, hold on, Timmy. Jeffrey, if you want to come on, we're missing 2 people. If you'd like to jump in and be a co-host, let me know and I will send you the link. Go ahead, Tim.
No problem. Back to James R. James R. in the house. We got the Pirate Brigade in here. We got Rog and we got James R. You guys need to take out the dinghy and then go kind of like get on an island and bury some treasure and then give us a map with an X on it, and then we'll maybe try to find it later. If we can get our asses
exactly
out of
what
the house.
you should do. I was thinking the same thing.
Tim, if they're going to do that, they need to add some rum. Some rum needs to be involved. If we're doing pirate stuff, we need rum.
All right. So get off the main ship, get in your dinghy, row your butts over to the island, bury like a really cool old galleon chest full of gold and riches and jewelry and stuff. Like spice it up for us.
Spice it up.
You can, and you know what? I know it's not that time period or reality, but throw a dragon into the mix too. Put a dragon in there that we got to somehow avert and get around. So make it interesting, and then to really make it easy for the rest of us, can you leave a trail of rum? Leave a
or
trail
just make
of
a
rum.
reality show about it.
We need rum crumbs, not Blue's Clues. We need rum crumbs to lead.
Rum shots would motivate me to find the X on the map, probably.
Exactly. All right, let me keep moving along. Let me keep moving down. We got Jeffrey Zamora. That he needs
the
like
author.
Well, no, it's almost like a movie name. There's one man who could save the world, and that's Jeffrey Zamora.
I'm not so sure he's not one and the same, Tim. He could be.
It could be. He could be like Terminator Jr. You never know. Moving along, Steve Todnam. Great to see you. I love names that put consonants together that you have to like tongue twist your way out of, and Todnam's one. Todnam's one. And I bet you people screw it up all the time, Steve. Feel free to comment on that one. Let's see. Keeping on down. Michael Redfern, good to see you, sir. Redfern always reminds me of Australia. And that's because there's a town called Redfern. And if you get on the train, you can find yourself in Redfern.
Mike, hope you're having a better day, buddy.
South Wales. Let's see. We got Dusty Country Road. Dusty, we're gonna have to get you on the show because I think we need you to sing us a song one night. So Dusty,
Heck,
plan on that. Even if you can't sing and don't play guitar, we're going to give you a window. You can learn. Let's see. And I think that's it. So
That's
great
it.
to see everybody tonight. So great for being here. And yeah, let's go.
We have Skip Kim Murray here. I'm
Yeah,
so happy.
We are lucky to get Skip on the show tonight, and we were trying. I think we tried a couple months ago. I think, and this is funny because I thought you were in Australia or New Zealand. For some reason, I thought that's where you lived, and I'm like, okay, this will work because if she's over there, that means it's 11 to 12 and noon. We're perfect, and everyone's like, no.
If I may, Skip, don't feel bad about that, because when Jacob Greer was on with Greg and I, John had no idea who he was.
Yeah,
he had no clue.
Dude, you've led a sheltered life.
Well, I think there's a very distinct difference from those of us that are very active on Twitter, and those who are very active on Facebook or not at all. Yeah.
Well, I saw her on a couple YouTube. We talked earlier, but I saw you on a couple YouTube shows, and those people that were on those shows. Most of them were from Australia and New Zealand, I think, and I think that's why I kind of associated you being in that part of the world. So,
and it's on my bucket list, or it was, to go to Australia and New Zealand. But Australia is such assholes to people who vape. I crossed them off my list.
Yeah, cross them off. You can't bring no vape stuff there.
Thank you for saying that, because that reminds me of the old Skip on Facebook from 29. I think we first became aware of each other because of Fig and Aaron, when Aaron was first coming out with A Million Lives. Yes, well, it was before that.
A Billion Lives. I lost my hat.
Yeah.
It was all ragged because I usually wear a hat. I don't like overhead lights. The whole edge of the visor was all frayed, and then it disappeared, and I'm heartbroken because I can't get another one.
It'll show up somewhere when you least expect it. But I became aware of you, and that was back, I think, when I was mostly on Facebook before. And I loved your posts. I like your Twitter posts far more now. It's extraordinary how much you've seen and done, and I'm so elated to meet you. I'm
happy to meet you too.
Yeah.
And I've earned every one of these gray hairs.
Oh, me too. Me too. I'm having one of those really bad last 2 years.
Henry, my nephew, said, Uncle Phillip, you have white little hairs on your chin. I said, shut up, kid.
Yeah. Shut up.
Well, Skip, we're going to start you off with the 2 to loosen you up questions. So I hope you're ready for them. So here we go. Are you ready? Drum roll, please, John. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no? This is a big one.
Depends upon how drunk I am.
Oh, gee, that's a different thing. I haven't heard anybody. Let me guess. Drunk pineapple, not drunk, not pineapple. Okay, that one works. That one works because when you're drunk, you really don't care. Everything tastes amazing.
Everybody, welcome to the show. It's going to be a good one.
When you're drunk, everything. I remember, I'll give you my drunk story. I was completely hammered, and we were at a bar, and this bar served pretzels. And they were the absolute worst pretzels you've ever eaten in your entire life.
John,
unless
not like
you were drunk.
Pretzels, like that are just sitting there in a bowl that everybody's touched.
No. Baked fresh pretzels with salt, like you get on the street in Philly or New York. And to bring them to this table, they had little cheese thing in it, a dip in there, and I'm eating these things, and I'm telling everybody, these are the best pretzels. They're amazing. The next day, everyone's, they were disgusting. Oh, all right. Question number 2. Your first job, and did you quit or get fired?
My first job was babysitting, and I have never been fired from a job.
I hope not. No one knows. Get out. They wouldn't leave.
No,
that's incredible.
True. I have walked from one job, and I've had one written warning.
Actually, that's a good point.
At work, I forgot to sign off on the meds I gave him, but I didn't sign off, and that was a written warning. And I cried because I have a thing about being perfect.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you know you made a mistake, and you know you're always doing your best to make sure you don't make those mistakes.
That's
Can I
actually
ask-
a good point to think about. If you walk away before you get fired, knowing that you are about to indeed get canned, does that count as being fired?
Oh, that's the question I was about to ask. So I had a job once,
Great
and
minds.
yeah, I had a job once, and I wasn't insubordinate. Let's just say I didn't get to work on time one time, and they said to me, "We're ready to accept your resignation."
Yeah.
Does that mean I got fired?
That's your
Or
first high
did I
paying
get
job right
did I
there.
did I get painted into a I quit corner? I don't know. You tell
You
me.
know, if you can convince an employee to exit, then you don't have to pay unemployment.
That's
So
right.
it's advantageous to come to a mutual agreement.
Hey,
I
I had no
worked
problem.
management for years.
And human resources is always, let's just say that the employer will nudge you toward that which will leave them least liable for your departure financially and legally.
All right,
Why
I'm
do
going
I
to
know
ask you
that?
the first serious question. Here we go. At one point early in your new article, you were sharing percentages related to smoking and mental health and mental illness. Richard kind of really opened my eyes up. I worked at a place called Medical Psychiatric Center here's Jeffrey. Let me let Jeffrey in. I work. I worked at a psychiatric center right out of high school, and I wasn't really paying attention to who was smoking. I was basically worried about getting stabbed with a plastic knife, than worrying about. But later, now when I read your article, I kind of pictured myself back then in the '80s working at that place, and I noticed in my mind everybody smoked in there. Every single person, even the adult, because they had the adolescents that were separated, they let them smoke because it was just so much easier for them to deal with those kids, letting them do their thing, because they would set the beds on fire. They would do stupid stuff if they didn't get to have that stuff. And like I said, that was the early '80s, and you can pretend that they didn't care, or they just they didn't know the long-term effects to smoking. But those numbers, today's numbers, they can't be ignored. I mean, do you feel that they see the health benefits of nicotine with these types of patients and with these types of illnesses?
Does who see the benefits?
The physicians, the healthcare providers, all those people that are pretty much going to decide whether you get certain help.
Yeah. No, I don't think very many people consider the fact that some people potentially could be self-medicating. Nicotine isn't like a miracle drug, and it doesn't affect everybody. So it's just kind of it's so equated with smoking and dying that you don't really think about it doing anything else.
Yeah. Timmy.
And of course, our Food and Drug Administration has never indicated for the treatment of anything other than, smoking cessation.
Right.
In the form.
There is research being done. I should have given you the link to my other stuff, but Paul Newhouse is doing the MIND study, and he is researching if nicotine can help with Alzheimer's and MCI,
right.
mild cognitive impairment or something. I forget what it's called because I'm on the spot, but yeah, there is some research being done.
Yeah. I was trying to get my dad on that with the dementia, but he was too far along. They wouldn't accept him. Yeah, it was too. Yeah, he was too far along. Tim.
Yeah, well,
you were up, Mr.
Yeah, to comment on that, when I heard about the studies being done regarding or surrounding nicotine and the utilization with it for memory retention, because I think that is one of the key elements that they believe that nicotine can help with. So like with all the other drugs that are out there today, like Prevagen and some of the other stuff that you see floating around, my mom is struggling with memory loss at 80 years old. I mean, at 80 years old, some are quick as a whip, and then others, they start to have typically one side of the memory bank start to go, either the short-term side, and then sometimes it's the long-term side, and it causes you to have questions about whether or not that research. Have you heard any more about whether or not there's been any positive traction in that area? I did not recommend it to my dad. I mean, obviously, growing up, they saw me as, they knew I smoked, and they didn't want me to endanger myself. But then when you hear about the benefits of nicotine and a reason for standing up and fighting for it in other contexts, not just as an element of that's baked into the smoking cessation part of it and vaping and stuff like that. Have you heard or seen any more studies come out that's providing data now that substantiates that?
We have a whole mess of studies on the Safer Nicotine Wiki. But for the Alzheimer's, first a pilot study was done with a small number of people, and it showed potential, and that's how come they got funding to do a long-term study. And there's a lot of people that, or studies that show that nicotine helps some people with cognition, focus. I self-medicate with nicotine. I have ADHD, and I'm not on medication for it. But I have to vape really high, Nick, for it to help me.
Right. Yeah, well, because then going back to the first thing that John kind of brought up, I mean, even though it may not be generally prescribed in a psychiatric setting, does the fact that people with those types of disorders who typically lean towards smoking, and then we hear the stuff come out where how, nicotine is a prime source of anxiety and depression and all this other, it would seem at the surface that that people with those particular disorders would already be suffering from those types of conditions, just natural anxieties or natural apprehensions and stuff, just because they've already got a chemical imbalance or something going on. Things aren't wired correctly. So do you feel that starts to help dispel the myth around campaigns like the depression stick and all this other stuff?
That's that whole problem with causation, right? See, those people are because that will actually, if it lights my ass on fire, God knows what it does to you, Skip.
I actually wrote Truth Initiative a letter about depression sticks and recorded it on a video. It's on YouTube somewhere. But you have a good point. We are all wired differently.
Yep.
And so, as I was researching the mental health thing, I found studies that said both. For some people, it can contribute to depression and anxiety. And for other people, it helps them with depression and anxiety. And if you smoke and you are addicted to nicotine, the withdrawal symptoms can mimic depression and anxiety.
Right.
So it can make your condition seem worse if you're battling those kinds of things.
And if we recall back in the 50s, 60s, the first study that it was the British doctor study, that's the one, the first one that actually shows some sort of cognitive effects positive, right? When it comes to Alzheimer and Parkinson's and all that stuff. So we actually, if we look at it that way, we do have a lot of decades of data. Whatsoever, like Skip was saying before, is that, well, the stigmatization of the drug itself, right, have not been contributing to actually explore the benefits. And if we look at for example, what happened with cannabis, the therapeutic benefits of it kind of bring the whole discussion way forward, right? So
to a different place. And there are, like, Parkinson's is a good example. There are less people with Parkinson's that smoke than people that don't smoke. But unfortunately, the smoking is so bad, it's not worth the risk to smoke just so maybe you won't get Parkinson's.
Right.
That's why we need better alternatives.
Right.
And I think that Jeffrey brings up a good point. My father, now retired, when he is 83. He but had a lengthy career as a neurologist, and he was never discussing it, but it's always been very well understood, especially within the neurological research community, that mild stimulants, caffeine, nicotine, do have a very beneficial, not very, but a consistently beneficial effect on the onset of Parkinson's and how severe, et cetera. And that's something that it's very hard to explain. My father was recently diagnosed with extremely mild Parkinson's. He's managing it very well, but sitting in that seat now, he jokes about how he should start smoking. He'll have a coffee and a cigarette, things like that. But to what John first said, after I graduated college, I had a BS in psychology, which is literally I think the second most unemployable degree you can get. And the first one would be, I guess, sociology. Anyway, I did a lot of volunteering on a psych ward here in Birmingham before I moved to Hotlanta and had a lot of fun. And it was an amazing facility. But what I did notice is that not only did everyone smoke, they crammed them all into a now defunct. They got rid of a small outdoor box with what I guess passed for air filtration at the time. There was no heat, no air, no nothing. It was just when every, I guess, couple hours they would let the this particular floor have, and this was the most permissive floor of a 7-floor psychiatric center. It was known as the open unit. They would let them go out to smoke, and it was shoulder to shoulder. Just they were all in there smoking. And I was a person who smoked at that time, and it occurred to me at that time, even if it wasn't on a very conscious level, that not only do we restrict smoking in the most bizarre and inhumane ways, we treat people who smoke no better.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Philip,
yes, you're right. The understanding
question.
that nicotine is probably beneficial to those. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's been on the books for a while, I think.
You have a question from Skip, Philip?
Skip, you have been published. How does it feel? I don't think I've ever been more proud of anyone. Tell me something. How did you get involved with TPA? And just very briefly, how did it feel when that paper was published?
Oh, the paper with Michael and Raven?
Yes.
We're still officially in preprint status. But that'll be a special edition, and it will be out probably this fall. And it is different people projecting ideas of what the future of the tobacco industry can look like. Michael is a very nice person from Canada. He is a scientist and a professor. And Raven is working on getting her PhD. So this was her first paper. And of course, little old me who never graduated from high school, it was my first paper too. It was amazing to work with them. It was really cool because I read studies all the time. That's what I do for fun. I'm kind of a nerd.
Don't forget much of anything you read, do you?
I forget a lot now. I'm not as young as I used to be. But
Stop it.
Stop it.
Yeah, stop it.
People with ADHD tend to have crappy memories anyway, so we'll blame it on that instead of my age.
Nonsense.
It was really cool to go through the process of writing and then see what it's like to work with peer reviewers and editors. And it gave me a whole new appreciation. I get ticked sometimes because a paper will come out. It's like new, but the information in the paper is 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And I'm like, come on. But it takes that long. I mean, we started working on this a couple of years ago, and it took us quite a while to get our initial draft done. And then you go back and forth with the reviewers a couple of times. And then I actually cried tears of joy when we got the email that our paper was accepted for publication. I just never imagined somebody like me being involved with something at that level. And it's really cool to have the opportunity. And I got the opportunity because I used to own a vape shop. And part of our paper is if all non-therapeutic nicotine products were sold in an age-restricted location and a low or no profit model instead of, the evils of big tobacco, blah, blah, blah. And so my contribution to the paper was my research about vape shops and my experience owning a vape shop and how much so many of us previously smoked. And that became our mission in life to help people. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not old. I'm just well, Steve. That's total vaping right there. That's a total.
Thanks, James. I love you.
I love that. Did they take the cap off and put you in a dark area for a while? 24 hours. Put the cap back on. Jeffrey, you have a question for Skip?
Bravo, Skip.
Well, you cut me off guard there.
I didn't know they were going to ask me questions, so I'm faking it. You might as well too.
I'll give you the music while you're thinking.
What do you think is your biggest, or what brings you the most happiness to your life currently?
Every time I help somebody quit smoking. Every time.
That is a great feeling. It is a great feeling.
It
is. Especially,
there really isn't much better than that.
I really miss having the shop. I'm really lucky. I live in a small town, and a lot of my former customers keep in touch. Last year, I spoke at GTNF in Washington, D.C., and told vape shop stories, and one of my stories was about Bob, and he was part of a group of veterans. Bob has since passed away, but I'm still in touch with all my vets. I make them their e-liquid and give it to them, and I bake them cookies, and they buy me coffee. And
nice.
It's like having 10 extra dads or grandpas or something, because they're just really cool guys.
Yeah, it's a great feeling when I have some of my friends that I had gotten started, 2 or 3 years ago, and they're still going strong with vaping, and I'll see them every now and then, and and they'll be just like, thank you. And it just feels great. I have one person that I can't get, and I get it. It's a little different because he was a chewer. He chewed tobacco. So it's been really, he's on and off. He'll go like 2-3 months with the vape and then back to chewing and then, back again. It's just, I seem to have a really hard time with people that simply just chew tobacco and trying to switch them over to vaping to quit chewing. It's been a difficult process.
Has he tried Nick pouches?
Yeah.
They've tried everything. They just keep going back. It's just that process of having that dip in your mouth for, I don't know. When I chewed, I think I kept it in there for like 15-20 minutes. So before I would either take it out or replace it with fresh
anything, Nick pouches are strong, too strong almost for me. And that is saying something.
I got the 3 Nick pouches in coffee flavor. I vape coffee flavor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, babe. All my vape. I have a whole desk full of vapes here. They all have some kind of coffee flavor in them. These are coffee flavor. Yeah. I helped a guy quit with Nick pouches and a product called Jerky Chew. I think it's by Jack Link's. It comes in a little tin like this, but it's shredded beef jerky.
Oh wow!
So he would do the beef jerky up in his lip for the sensation, the sensory part, and then a pouch for the nicotine.
Oh wow! Yeah.
You got to get creative. Tobacco
have the consistency of beef jerky.
Can you imagine a beef jerky vape?
I would love it.
Whatever works, man.
Whatever works. I have actual question from Allie because she couldn't join us today. Allie wasn't feeling good, so
we miss you, Allie.
Yeah, you have been so open about living with your own mental illness, which I think is so important since it gives you the ability to respond to misperceptions. What would you say is the biggest I can barely see this stigma that you have faced in taking this approach, and how did you handle this situation?
Oh boy. I didn't get diagnosed until 2020. I had actually gone to zero nicotine, and had some issues with suicide plans, and good old Aaron Biebert. Speaking of our favorite movies, after we went to the premiere of Nicotine, he called me and asked me if I was okay, and we figured out I wasn't, and I fortunately got help, but I kept it secret for a while. And when I finally went public, because I've been a very active advocate, most people have been super supportive, but there were 3 people that took it upon themselves that they just felt that I shouldn't be so public with my diagnosis. And there were some very unpleasant messages with some very unkind, stigmatizing words. And they just felt I should shut up, basically. And I really struggled with that. And eventually ended up blocking them because they wouldn't back off. But I did write a letter. It was in my blog, and I probably tweeted the link to it. Joe Gitchell helped me. I, at one point, had trouble putting things into words in a positive way instead of an unkind way.
Unkind.
Yeah, and so
keyboard warrior way.
Yes,
Keyboard warrior.
yes. I grew up in a hard life, and one of the things you learn is how to survive. And if you knock people down first, then they can't get to you. So my family teases me about my poison pen. I can bring people to tears with words. And people like Joe have been very helpful, helping me learn how to use my words in a positive way so that people actually listen. But that was the hardest part about going public, was being called very unkind things and being told that I shouldn't advocate for this anymore. So.
It's funny that you mentioned that. My mother is very fond of telling me that I have a bifurcated tongue and I need to put it away. This is something that I've always had a tendency to do, and it's not attractive, and it's something that I am. Whenever I feel the need to lash out and try and put someone on the floor with a nasty. Albeit witty comments, I will look for Joe on Twitter and I will engage with him in some way. And he is of just a tremendous reminder of how I'm really not that, I don't apologize for being a nerd and, someone who can be extremely nice and come off as, dorky. I like that part. I like that me better than the other one, and I think everybody else does too. So,
well, I got a quick question here. I'm going to call them the nicotine cartel, okay? And those are, I'm going to say the pharmaceutical companies, whoever's producing nicotine. To me, I'm not sure if they. Do they understand that they have a product that can do a lot more than just being part of cigarettes? Do you feel that they understand that part of it, that this is something that can be used for other things?
I don't think so.
I do think so. But
do you?
Yeah, but it's not as profit. It doesn't make as much profit as smoking.
That's what I would get.
I just don't see a lot of.
Well,
I see
I'm just
research
saying,
by academics. You don't really see the research that companies do because most of them don't make it private. But yes, the profit would be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, this is a chemical that has been studied for hundreds of years, right? I mean, it goes way back, and I mean, they've been studying it. They know what it's possible, what it can do, what it can't do, and it just I understand profit, but it seems like it took the vaping industry to come out with vaping to show that nicotine can be used this way instead of a cigarette. And I just wondering if pharmaceutical companies out there see the benefits and try to use it in other drugs and stuff like that. Because we were talking about mental illness and firsthand working at that place, I noticed that they were much calmer when they were coming back from having a cigarette for at least a half hour to an hour. And I felt kind of, I mean, it was very, I was a teenager, so I was 18. So I was young being in there and kind of new to that whole people with mental illness. So for me, seeing, these people that were just really lost and just seeing a whole different person walking back in, from their smoke break and just, hey, John, how you doing? How's your day going? Everything okay? But prior to that, the rest of the day, it was like, you son of a bitch, I want to kill you. I'm like, back off, buddy. Back off.
You mean in a clinically significant way, you mean? Or just elevated their mood?
It was like a different person walked back out into the building after having their cigarette. And it was just, to me, it seemed like, I get it. I get why the nurses want them to go out and smoke. I get why the doctors want them to go out there and smoke, because they were more manageable, more controlled.
The staff there, they were a little too obvious with their glee when they went out to the smoking
I was in fear
box
every day. And the place that I worked in at lunchtime, part of the policy was we all ate lunch together. So I don't want to call them inmates. They're not inmates, but patients and the staff, the medical staff, the janitorial staff, everybody sat together and had lunch together. So they tried to make it seem more like we're all a family.
Yep.
Yeah. And for me, like I said, I noticed them, being more in control or more capable of having a conversation. So it just makes me wonder if that process is being,
I would think you can't patent nicotine.
No, you can't.
So that as a medication would have no potential to make a profit.
Yeah.
But, from the time you worked there till now, we've learned a lot about brains and about how nicotine affects the brain. And, they can do all that imaging and stuff now and see all of that. So it could lead to them developing medications that affect the brain in a similar way, but maybe more specifically targeted that could help people.
Yeah.
And I wish they would do more work on that, even when it comes to quitting smoking, because when's the last time a smoking cessation product has been put on the market in this country? It's been years.
Last time there was a proper lengthy study done on the effects of nicotine with different delivery mechanisms, smoking, vaping, patches, etc. on it would be decades, but the point is there's really no evidence to conclude that nicotine puts off the onset of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, what have you. There is a relationship there between nicotine use and people have either milder or no Parkinson's, things of that nature. But whether it be nicotine or any number of the things that you ingest when you smoke, it's hard to say, I suppose. I don't know of any study that has any strong conclusions that nicotine is the effective agent in these situations. But everyone, whether it be neurologists or researchers, they all tend to just quietly know that people who smoke most definitely are less likely to have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Timmy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, there's no willingness to actually study it. That's a problem. Because imagine if we have had this, if vaping wasn't a thing, we wouldn't be studying that much into nicotine or smoking cessation. That field was stuck. Really.
Well, the point is, I was going to say this one last thing. I'll shut up. The point is now we actually have non-lethal ways of looking into this, whereas before, back when my old man was in residency or med school or whatever, everyone was just like, yeah, this works, but you'll die horribly in another way. So yes, I think that it's important that we look into it. I also think it's very hard to argue from that perspective because there is, let's just say that the whole idea of causation's a real pain in the ass, isn't it?
It is, and when you look at certain mental illnesses, if they're severe, that they're requiring hospitalization or, to be institutionalized or have to live in a group home and not be able to live independently in the community. For years, we were so focused on treating just that. And I don't think people paid attention to the numbers. Yeah. And now they know that for a lot of them, it's not their mental illness or old age that's ending their lives. It's smoking. And
those numbers are amazing. I mean, I just jaw dropping.
Timmy, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought
I was just to say from a human rights standpoint, where's your compassion for people?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Timmy, we're ready.
Bring it. You're muted. Yeah, there he goes.
That's called live show etiquette, John. No, I've before I even ask a question, my question was more open-ended to everybody on the panel, give everybody a chance to kind of comment on the thought that was in my head. But I did sort of pre-warn Skip that I was going to drop a little nugget of how we were akin to each other in some weird way. Now, music could have been one of them. That was a very good guess pre-show. But Skip has posted, I think, 2 or 3 times. I can at least remember 2 where she had an empty jar of peanut butter on the desk in front of her. Wait, and how did I know? Right, exactly. And I just wanted to say that I absolutely 1000%, and maybe now peanut butter needs to be studied, but I share in your addiction.
Peanut butter jerky certainly does.
You go to Costco and they got the 2 big, huge things of Jif, for like $14, and you get it and you're like, man, that's enough peanut butter to last me like a month. Nope, it's like gone in like a week and a half because you just can't. You're there with a spoon and you're doing stuff. Yeah,
yes.
You can't stop. You literally cannot stop. And then it's like a really bad drunk night. You wake up the next morning and you're like all like, your every artery and aorta and
you're lying on your back because you can't roll over.
Completely clogged with peanut butter, and you're like hating yourself in the moment. You're like, I'm never gonna do that again. Guess what happens? You do it all over again.
Oh yes. On everything. I love peanut butter.
God, it's the worst addiction known to man. All right.
Have you tried it on ice cream?
Yes.
No, but
make a peanut butter milkshake, dude. It is so good. And if you want to go all gourmet, add some banana and chocolate. But
good
peanut butter. Yeah, I have nutrition bars when I'm running around town. Basically, they're these I don't know, low sugar, protein bars. Basically, I'll do peanut butter chocolate. If they ever come out with a peanut butter banana, I will be first in line.
I'm sure they probably do, but it's just there's something unique and fun about creating your own sort of monstrosity delicacy. Anyway, back to the question. I'm getting off on peanut butter tangents, but I wanted to applaud Skip and say I know how you feel. With that said, this is more open-ended to the panel, right? So, I mean, obviously, the conceptual idea of nicotine is extremely under the microscope right now. I think vaping probably was a big catalyst as to why that sort of, and I feel like a lot of the hypersensitivity to it or the hyper focus on it is a bit of the dog and pony show that the powers that be that need to demonize it or stigmatize it they need to play that game to try to find the one thing in vaping that they can say, aha, I've got my finger on the death nail of everybody when it comes to vaping really truthfully being a smoking cessation tool. And those would probably be the first people that don't understand that there's different levels of nicotine delivery. There's totally different delivery systems, that they all kind of serve their purpose depending on what you need. I guess my question about nicotine in general is, if it's been around for so long, why do they want to seem to equate nicotine to other sort of class A drugs that are out on the street? Like, you know, we could pick a million of them, you know, heroin, meth, you know, all of the stuff that we know drives people into destitution and separation from their families, and, you know, and potentially towards worse outcomes, you know, death itself. You know, I mean, they could overdose on some of these things. Why is it that they seem to want to try to make a connection between nicotine, which I think for most people in general is probably no worse than being addicted to caffeine? You know what I mean? It's just sort of like this thing that kind of fills space in your life, but you just don't see people who use nicotine like out on the street corner with a cardboard sign that says, you know, we'll work for nicotine or something like that. I mean, you just don't see it driving people to homelessness. So why do they want to elevate it so high and really sort of kind of shine a light on it like that, when, I mean, we're all sitting here vapors in general and we're not all tweaking?
That's well, for me at least, it's a vendetta thing. This kind of the vengeance of people that they were involved in the 80s and the 90s in tobacco control, and they feel fooled by them. And then, you know, after that, they realize there is a there's a lot of profit in getting involved into this. And in top of that, you know, if you go to the progression, and I'm pretty sure that Philip can actually weigh way more than me on this particular thing, but the Lucifer effect that is from Zimbardo, you know, the people that are starting in tobacco control, they have seen how pretty much it's one of the really, really rare areas where stigma, coercion, and, you know, violation of human rights is still acceptable.
Yeah.
As a way of making of getting to a point or getting to a goal, right? So they go down that route, that, you know, thinking that, okay, if they have done it and they're saying that it works, even though that in 20 years we have not seen the number of people that are smoking go down, we must continue, because the bigger heads of the, you know, tobacco control organizations and the WHO and all those guys think that is acceptable will go that route.
Yeah.
And they believe that is okay.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Oh yeah.
Skip, your thoughts?
I think it's a moralistic thing. You know, years ago, I really believed that all these tobacco control people were doing it for the money.
Yeah.
I really thought they had evil intentions. And, you know, my life has changed so much in the last 2 years, and I've gotten the opportunity to break out of our little bubble, my little group of people that'll always agree with me, and talk to people with differing views. And they really think they're trying to help people. Most of them, it's not about money. They, you know, they believe that nicotine is bad. It doesn't matter if you smoke it or not, it's bad. So it's more of a moralistic do-gooder thing than an evil, you know, I'm going to make $1 million as long as I try to make you not smoke. And I think my first eye-opening experience was a time I testified at a city council meeting a couple hours from here. And this lady got up, and now I forget where she was from. She was a local volunteer, like cancer, heart, lung, one of those groups, local volunteer. And she spewed so many lies.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, whoa. So I get up and try to, in 2 minutes, debunk everything she said. And after the meeting, you know, I'm out on the sidewalk vaping with everybody that I testified with. And she was a few feet away just glaring at me. And we ended up talking to each other, and we went out for a cup of coffee, and it was the most incredible experience because she asked me why I do what I do, because she thought I was evil. Like
Yes.
I was trying to addict all of America's children and lead them astray and damage their brains.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard to rebuke people who are that far off and
Right.
say such things. And if you listen too critically, you will end up getting befuddled and just like, what? in
It was
God's
a
name?
it was a good conversation though, because we both listened to each other.
Yeah, listened,
So
which
I
doesn't
got
happen.
Right. I got to talk about my son and him smoking and having a heart attack and almost dying. And she got to tell me about her husband who smoked and had lung cancer and died.
Yeah.
And that's why she does what she does. But she believes it's the nicotine that does that to you, not the other crap in a cigarette.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you
You
think
try-
that
you have to-
you think that I mean, the big tobacco had a little bit of a hand in that in the early '60s when they went up to Congress. I think that push was to kind of hide the fact of the other stuff that's in the cigarettes, and I think that has a big stigma because even that generation, which would be my parents, it wasn't about the other 4,000 chemicals that were in the cigarette. They didn't give a crap about that. There's just the nicotine. And as I got older and I started vaping, I tried to explain that to my mom, and she kind of understood. It wasn't the nicotine that was killing us. It's the rest of the shit that they put into that cigarette. What is the chemical that they put in there just to preserve the cigarettes? The cigarette lifespan is ridiculous. Yeah, see, and I think they had a big push into that just in during the early '60s when they were in front of Congress and with their lies, and nobody's going to believe anything anymore. So it's hard to prove that nicotine isn't the culprit.
It's hard to prove. We have organizations that are not scientific in nature. They are organizations that advocate for certain public health causes. American Cancer, American Lung, American Heart. People for a very long time have taken them at their word, and I honestly cannot possibly blame the population at large for being somewhat confused and I guess leery of our of our disagreements because, well, let's just say that we have really been looking at I myself have been looking at vaping for so long for some harm, for some hidden risk. When I quit 13 years ago, I scoured the encyclopedias of the interwebs for some reason that this had to be killing me quicker than smoking. And when I came up with nada, nil, zilch, I thought to myself, this is a miracle milestone. People need to know about this. And I've been in my own way doing it, advocating, trying to spread the word as best I can ever since. But what I think in response to Skip's question, or your question to Skip about what motivates people who are ideologically opposed to vaping, I think there are two things. I think Jeff makes a great point. The Lucifer effect, basically, that's the phenomenon when you have a moral individual who, under intense peer pressure, will do evil, vile things to other people as a result of being pressured into that situation. The other thing is there's a pathological desire on the part of a lot of these researchers. For example, Stanton Glantz, the prospect, I don't know if it's the prospect of being wrong or being irrelevant. I don't know, but I think the prospect of not being found wanting in some way or another is impossible for them to understand and to coalesce. But I also think with every passing day, there are fewer people who are absolutely never going to change their minds, and more people who are starting to listen, even if ever so slightly.
I agree. We have a lot of experts that are becoming more and more vocal about the potential of tobacco harm reduction to save lives. And I think part of the problem, with the whole mind changing thing is good old fashioned tribalism.
Yeah.
You know, that's in our genes. That's
Yep.
how we as a species survived, is to be a tribe. And if you go outside your tribe, you risk being out on your own. And that's a scary thing.
Something I forgot to mention, and I still believe this.
hold up.
I think,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think I think how vaping mimics and looks like smoking has more to do with this than anyone cares to mention.
I agree.
And that, and the fact that it's pleasurable.
Yeah, it's also ridiculous that a lot of people equate knowledge with dollars, and it's just that kind of drives me crazy. It's like, oh, it's Bloomberg. Bloomberg is a very intelligent billionaire. He wouldn't be getting involved in this if it didn't mean something to him. And I'm thinking to myself, there is something that means something to him, and it's profit. And his goal is, I'll spend a few billion here so I can make billions later. And I mean, it blows me away when people just go, well, that guy's a billionaire. He's got to be a smart individual. We should listen to him. And I hate that. Because there's a lot of people I run into that are like, well, he's a very rich man. Elon Musk is very intelligent. He's very rich. So he's got to be, we should listen to him. And I'm like, research, do a little bit of research on your own.
And
I have an alley. Yeah, go ahead.
They're all human. And
Yeah.
no human is right 100% of the time.
That's right.
And, people like Michael Bloomberg, he has contributed to some things and has done a lot of really good things in the world. And so where is his mind at? Does he really believe he's doing a good thing? Is he all about controlling people? What is his deal? It really
Has there ever been an article? Has there ever been an interview with him where he just sat down one-on-one with somebody and talked about this issue specifically, nothing else, but just to see what he brings to the table, if his knowledge?
A group of experts wanted to meet with him, and he wouldn't meet with them.
Yeah, most probably Meyer said no. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when it comes to kids,
I think he's been asked by several groups of experts. I don't know if it's the 15, but I think that he's been asked by many groups of researchers and people who've been working in this area to meet with them, so they might be able to explain, what it is that vaping and tobacco harm reduction is, and he is essentially not paid any attention to it. But I do think of Mike Bloomberg, if you look at his, let's just say his many years in public service, perhaps in New York, et cetera, he has a tendency to be either in control or very pissed that he's not in control.
Right.
And that's...
Well, I would just, I want to have an sit down. I don't personally myself with him, but I want to see an interview, and I don't want to hear the same story that we all share. Yes, our mother died from smoking. Our father died from it. I want to know more. Why is there more, Pat? Why are you so involved in this? Other than the fact that maybe someone has passed. Yeah. I don't want to hear the same story, because we all share that story. We all have somebody in our lives that has passed away from smoking cigarettes. I want to hear why, other than that, is your reason for dumping millions and millions and millions of dollars into these anti-vaping programs. I want to know what you know. What do you know that we don't know about vaping? Because that's the bottom line.
He thought for a while that the stop and frisk thing in New York was a good thing.
Yeah, the sugar bans.
He's the jerk. He's the jackass that banned the 32-ounce sodas. And I mean,
I'm saying that these are things that if he's not, let's just say that after a while, his intentions seem like they go by the wayside, and he simply wants to win.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I got an alley question for you. I have to throw it out there. Back in December 22nd, you wrote an article for Filter titled "A Small Vape Shop Save Lives." I could not agree with you more. I think that these decision makers in public health could spend a day in a vape shop. It could really make a difference. Have you seen any uptick in people who smoked in your area since your shop and others had closed down? Alley question.
I love Allie. I have been pretty much in isolation for a long time. I was already isolating mentally before COVID hit, But once COVID hit, my husband has COPD and my son has heart disease. The state made us shut down our shops for a few weeks. And then we went like anal, like there's sneeze guards everywhere. Limit how many people in the shop at a time, trying to find that balance between how can I still serve people and yet protect my family, plus protect the residents at the group home I worked at. And I have pretty much stayed in isolation. I'm just kind of happier in my own little corner rather than in social situations. And that's probably the autism, What has broken my heart is since my shop closed, 3 hybrid businesses have opened in my area, and I live in a small town. So they are, a smoke shop, a tobacco shop, a wellness, CBD, Delta 8, whatever. And none of the owners used to smoke. They are a business. This is a way to make a living.
Right.
They are not. I'm a shitty business person. I just want to save the world. I was the lowest price shop because that was the clientele I served, the people that couldn't afford the other shops. It's been really hard to see some of them go back to smoking. That's been a soul crusher. And that's why I make a few of them some liquid and just give it to them, because I don't want them to go back to smoking.
Yeah.
And I have leftovers from the good old days. So I really don't know in my community what's going on. I still have my shop. I'm in the back room of my old shop. I use it as an office space for my job with TPA because I live out in the country and my internet sucks. There's a bar right next door to me, and there's a lot of cigarette butts in front of my door every morning before I open. I just kind of want to leave a collection of vapes out there and see.
That's actually a really that's a beneficial little co-tenancy there, I would think. Maybe. I guess if your hours were from 8 until 4 a.m., 8 p.m. to 4 p.m. But no, I mean, yes, there are a lot of I have a tendency to go into different vape shops around here and sort of take survey the estate and see if their response, if they're aware of the great responsibility they have speaking with these people for the first time. Because if a person who smokes,
Thank you.
If a person who smokes walks into a vape store and is met with someone who can help them find what they need as opposed to what they got, that's the difference between that person perhaps not smoking anymore and never even trying to quit again. And that's a daunting responsibility. It is.
And what I saw, from the time I opened to the time I closed, I had over a 60% drop in sales. Now, when you're operating on a lower profit margin than your competition, that doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room. And that decline started right before the whole fake Valley, the misinformation really, really, really hurt us here in our small town. And, I watched a lot of vape shops across the nation close. And the ones that stayed open mostly became hybrid shops and got into things like CBD or other wellness products. And that was the only way they could survive. But it does kind of take the focus off of what a lot of us little businesses were. And that was about helping people not smoke.
Yeah.
So.
This is the thing, even though the Valley, and I'm really sorry that actually contributed to closing the shop, of course. But that actually happened here as well in Costa Rica with the Valley. The repercussions from the Valley in the United States made shops close here in Costa Rica. It was a worldwide effect.
Yeah,
that is sad. And then right after that is COVID.
Yeah.
And our governor closed down the vape and tobacco shops, but he left all the liquor stores open.
Truly.
So now, unless you want to vape a high nic product that you can buy at a C-store, you are screwed. And we were told 2 weeks. So we warned all our customers, stock up for 2 weeks. Well, it was way more than 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and they ran out of stuff. What do you do? So right then and there, we lost a whole mess of people that went back to smoking.
Yeah.
And now they're like, screw it. You know, some came back to vaping and some didn't. We, in that time span, went from 18 being the legal age to 21. That was a cut in sales right there. And
Yeah.
people go, well, ones that young shouldn't be, you know, vaping or smoking. But I had a guy named Ben. He came in on his 18th birthday to quit smoking. He found out his girlfriend was pregnant and he was going to be a dad and he wanted to be a good dad. And on his 18th birthday, I helped him quit smoking. And he was 20 when we went to Tobacco 21, but he knew a gas station that would sell him cigarettes. So he went back to smoking. And then when he turned 21, he came in the shop and I helped him quit smoking again. But all those things hurt, you know,
Yeah.
especially the low volume shops because they just don't have any wiggle room.
Go ahead, Tim.
No, I mean, I was going to go to a different question. I was just acknowledging the effect that EVALI and the COVID epidemic kind of, you know, had on the vaping industry as a whole. But my question kind of goes back to part of a conversation we were having before. I kind of write notes as we go, just so I can create questions here. But you talked about the woman that you had the conversation with out in front of the symposium or the
City Hall.
The city hall that was going on. My overarching question is, why is it that even to this day, it seems like you had a conversation with somebody that was on the other side of the fence and you got to see their perspective and understand why they advocate the way that they do. And I'm hoping that that person has more clarity on exactly why you advocate the way that you do. What I want to understand is, why is it that, and we're willing, at least this side of the fence is willing to, I don't see any resistance coming from, why is it that we can't seem to have that conversation collectively? Why can't we bring all the antis to the table and all the people that are using vaping as a cessation? I'm not talking about the hobbyists or the people that go buy the disposable just because they want to try something new or kind of get hooked on a fad. And like, I don't think those are legitimate cases to throw out on the table. I mean, most of them will probably be passersby in the end anyway. But why can't we bring that core element of advocacy and why we do fight for it and seem to have that conversation with the people who see it differently than we do and think that their fight is just as ours is, and have some middle ground or find some middle ground that potentially could satisfy both sides?
Hard truth now, Skip. Hard truth. Bring it.
Actually, there have been efforts in the past to do that. There was a large group several years ago. And I'm suck at names. The Strategic Dialogue of something or another, somewhere that started with an M. It was a large group of people, and they didn't agree on everything, but they did agree on some things. And they printed a paper. Scott Ballin was one of them. Cheryl Heaton was one of them. She's a former Truth Initiative person. Matt Myers was probably involved, several academic scientists. And they did have a second meeting a few years later and couldn't come to a consensus to put out a paper.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get everybody to agree on the same goal. Do you want to end smoking? Do you want to end the use of nicotine? You know, do you just want to reduce smoking to a certain level? Like 5% seems to be the magic number. And a lot of people can't state a specific goal, and they're not willing to pick what trade-offs they're willing to deal with to achieve that goal.
Yeah, well, to follow up on that, I mean, it just would seem like from the vaping side of the argument, we could bring to the table all the different variations to say, hey, look, you know, and I'm not trying to get rid of any one component of vaping, because I think there's different elements that hit the target for different people, right? Like me as someone who was a former smoker who vapes now, my general consumption is around the 3 to 6 milligram range, which is far less than the natural cigarette that's out there on the market. and I don't want to discount the 50 milligram, because there could be somebody who is a 3 or 4 pack a day smoker who needs a much higher nicotine content, but with the right sort of education in terms of the transitioning from previously smoking to now vaping, and maybe starting with 50, that they can be guided on a path that allows them to wean themselves down. So they'll find themselves getting away from that 50. They won't always need the 50. And then they can go to 25 and so on and so forth. But I think that, why do you feel that the other side of the fence wants to be so myopic and just sort of treat vaping as a one size fits all? And it doesn't matter whether it's 3 milligram or 50 milligram, but they demonize it equally, as though all those different levels will have the same impact and effect on the general public if it's made available, and meaning those that are hardcore trying to get rid of it.
I think because they believe nicotine's bad.
Yeah.
Even if it's just an addiction, that loss of autonomy because you no longer have control, to some people is not acceptable. And they may not even realize that every morning they have to have their morning cup of coffee. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris, thanks for stopping by.
They have to have their, morning cup of coffee or their beer and whiskey on the rocks after work to unwind. Right. They just don't. There are certain things that are socially acceptable, and certain things that aren't. And to them, nicotine is the devil.
Right.
The devil.
Yeah, I guess I asked that question because it would seem like we could sit down at the table and say, well, here's a theoretical plan. I mean, if we want to talk about it, I mean, we can start somebody at this level and then instruct them or guide them into devices or other applications that would allow them to potentially kind of ultimately reach that target that I think the other side might be looking for, and that is no smoking, no vaping, period. But you got to think that NRTs are the answer or cold turkey is the answer. Again, it's not a one size fits all community. Some of those things haven't worked for tons of people, but vaping has. And I just don't see why they can't seem to embrace a little bit of the idea that we do have general plans for helping people to get to a point of total cessation. Neither.
I think those people would feel better if these products went the medicinal route.
Oh, okay.
And were a legitimate, approved smoking cessation product. And I think to some of them, they look at studies and go, oh, the patch works for some people. And in their brain, it's, well, then the patch works. And we all know that for some people it works and some people it doesn't. I tried every method known to man. I even tried being hypnotized. And I have a horrid, unbelievable fear of needles. Yeah. And I was so desperate that one time I got drunk and tried acupuncture, and I still didn't quit smoking.
Well, I'm sorry about the acupuncture. I'm glad you got the vaccine. The acupuncture, not so much. We got through that together. Remember? You did it. Remember? That was one of my favorite Twitter moments ever.
To me, I just think it's just really funny. I mean, it like I look around. I was a smoker. We're all smokers on this panel, and
I am not.
Well, we were all smokers at one time.
I'm a person that used to smoke.
Yes, used to smoke, and it just I find it funny that the people outside of that circle that are not vapors and are not smokers look at the way they're going, and they're using the word flavors to get rid of this product, but yet keep every other cigarette brand still in the market. It makes absolutely no sense to me that the general public doesn't say, well, fucking wait a minute here. You want to get rid of this product that is helping millions of people quit smoking, but yet you want to keep all these cigarettes on the market. And that's fine. That's fine. And not to hear any of these groups. How many times have you been to Paves or Parents Against Vaping's page where they actually had an article about actual cigarette smoking?
But
Never.
rich white kids aren't smoking anymore.
Well, yeah, that's up until like the
That's
last 6 months.
probably a little too blunt, but
A
the-
round of applause. Thank you.
the whole losing their minds over children
Yeah.
wasn't a big deal till the rich white kids started vaping. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but then
no,
it was a big deal.
The far and wide, the ridiculously, the vast majority of people who smoke are of lower middle income,
well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just
poor
Definitely
people,
one-
if you will.
yeah,
Now
just
that
what's
that
going
being
on in
said,
Australia. Hold on, just what's going on in Australia makes me laugh that the rest of the world is not saying to themselves, "This is ridiculous. This is
Australia is a
absolutely
clusterfuck
ridiculous."
unto itself.
You want to
Sorry.
make vaping a prescription, but yet Joe Blow can walk into any fucking convenience store and buy a pack of cigarettes, and he doesn't need it. He doesn't need a prescription. He doesn't need to see a doctor. He doesn't need anything. And this is okay with everybody. And it's
Doesn't
just
make
like,
sense.
Don't forget
Yeah.
the $45 American it costs or something like that. Oh my.
It doesn't make sense that they don't put those two together and see that this is about money. I mean, everybody has it. We're all we all have a little bit of conspiracy nuts in us, you know. And it just seems like, why isn't this to them open their eyes and go, well, wait a minute, there's got to be something going on here. You know, why is this product being attacked? And like I talked about before, when vaping first came out, when blues first came out, and it was on the Phil Donahue show, my mom called me. She goes, you got to go get this thing. This looks like it works. It's going to be great. And it was praised for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then all of a sudden we started seeing in the sales go up and up and up and up and up. And then all of a sudden it became a problem. Vaping became a problem. It just, to me, it's just weird that nobody's outside of our little circle is saying to themselves, there's got to be something else going on here. Why is this such a big thing that needs to be wiped out? But yet we're going to keep the one thing that's killing millions of people worldwide every day. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
That is the cancellation that we're going through. And just going back to what Tim said and what Steve commented on the comments of the video, the WHO actually the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control expands the definition of the 5.3 article that actually makes it impossible for organizations, not only that they're funded by tobacco companies, but they are just in support of harm reduction, to speak to other organizations that are making the shots or making the, regulating this stuff. So the consumers, us, and the ones that we're involved in organizations, we're trying to reach those regulators, and they're saying that we're violating some sort of 5.3 and article, and
Article 746.
the article is 5.3, and they're expanding on it to make sure that we don't have no contact, the consumers have no contact with the regulation.
Expanding or contracting.
Exactly. Then the 5.3 is also applied to the FCTC and the COP 10 and the COP 9 and the COP 8 and so on, and all the COPs that have happened. And they're making it impossible for consumers or people that have a stake on this, that are positive to harm reduction, to get involved in the decision making and actually to tell their experiences to them.
Right.
It seems the World Health Organization is doing a pretty good job on their own of, losing a certain amount of credibility these days. I hate to say it, but that's the way it's working. And I don't like to see that. I don't like to see people lose faith in these institutions. But at the same time, they have really they've shown some really poor form. But I think that I forgot what I was going to say. That's
Ali wanted me to ask you this question, so I want to make sure we get this one out there. After your shop was forced to close down, you started working with the TPA, the Taxpayers Alliance. Tell us a little bit more about what you do there.
I am their research fellow. So I get to totally embrace my autism and my love of reading studies and help compile information that I, Lindsay, and Martin use to write testimony, write op-eds, share with other people to advocate for tobacco harm reduction. That was totally Lindsay's idea. She was like, this is your life, your passion. you do it 24/7 for free. Why don't you think about becoming a fellow and working with us and helping us do what we do? And so even though the Taxpayers Protection Alliance deals with a lot of issues, a lot of big government things, they let me follow my path, and I get to specialize in tobacco harm reduction. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Not to play favorites, but the TPA is a really impressive organization, and I think David Williams is just a wonderful guy.
It was really cool going to Washington, D.C. I went to ESIG Summit, and then TPA had an event for staffers, congressional staffers. And Lindsay moderated the panel that I was on with Alex Clark and Mark Sliss, two kick-ass dudes to be on a panel with, I tell you what. But it was kicked off by David Williams, the founder of TPA, and he got to talk about his experience and his dad who smoked and died from smoking. And I didn't know that story till he told it.
Yeah.
So now I know that, where his passion comes from. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's
All right, you're ready for the fun part. Are you ready?
Of course. What? Let's go.
All right, Skip. The first song you remember learning all the words to as a teenager. The teenager, not the little kid songs, but as a teenager. And can you sing a few bars of it?
I do not sing.
We'll sing with you.
We'll sing with you.
I do not sing. I was going to message you that when you asked me to be on this show.
It's too late.
When I was a little girl, we had an antique organ, the kind you pumped with your feet.
Yeah.
And my mom was very musical. And she would put me, I was just a little toddler. She put me on her lap and she worked the pedals and taught me how to play the organ. And for many, many years, music was a huge part of my life. Before I ever was old enough to, 5th grade, you play the recorder, that little wooden fluty thing.
Yeah.
By the time I hit that age, I could play keyboards, guitar, banjo, accordion, concertito.
Banjo is tough.
I played saxophone in the school band. I taught myself how to play the flute, the clarinet.
You went from string to brass. That's
oh yeah.
Tough.
Wow.
I
used to have a really cool Fender jazz bass, electric guitars, acoustic guitars. I tried drums. I suck at drums. I really suck at remembering lyrics. To this day, I still suck at remembering lyrics. I played in a band for years. Right after high school, I went to LA for a summer with the band I was in, and we hit all the clubs out there. And in 1980, I just walked away from music and moved to Brainerd, and that was it.
Oh,
and
wow.
Until a couple of years ago, when my mom passed away, she still had all of her instruments and my old instruments.
Oh, nice.
And when she was in high school, a musician named Lowell Lundstrom, who's a famous evangelist years down the road, gave my mom a guitar. And when I was a kid, she gave me her guitar. And that's the guitar I learned to play on. And when she passed away, there was a lot of debt to deal with, and I parted with all the instruments. And after my rough times there in 2020, I ended up running into the gentleman that bought my mom's guitar, and he gave it back to me.
Oh, nice.
So a couple years ago, I started playing again, and I play for fun, just on my own. And
I think that's the most awesome story I've ever heard.
I couldn't tell you which song. I like all kinds of music except opera. I cannot stomach opera. But I seriously can listen to classical just as much as I can listen to metal, country, polkas. I don't care. I really love music. It's one of the things that have helped me survive a lot of really hard times throughout my life. So,
on opera, I swear I could get you into a little bit of Gilbert and Sullivan given the opportunity. I could. I swear. It's hilarious. It's too funny not to get into.
We'll try it sometime.
Cheeky, but hilarious.
If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done?
Say that again.
If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done?
kick a cop in the nuts and dropped him on the pavement.
Man, that's the best.
Everybody
answer.
knows that one.
That's the best answer ever, right there.
I used to date a cop. I don't have a thing, but I'm working on a paper right now, an article about nicotine being the new war on drugs. And so I've had to do a lot of research about the cops that aren't the good cops. And I'm a very emotional, empathetic person. So like when I watch the news and there's a hurricane, I start crying because I feel so bad for all those people. So I've been watching videos and reading articles about people being tased and beat and kicked and, locked up for hours. And it just really got to me. And right now, that would be what I would end up in jail for, because if I saw that happening to somebody, my impulsiveness would probably
after the latest tasing in Ocean City, I really had to make an effort to get online and look at heartwarming, very positive stories about the good cops doing heroic things, because otherwise I was going to spiral into this. I mean, I felt hate in my bones after that. I was truly, I was foaming at the mouth. But I think that it's unfortunate how few stories you see about police officers who are doing it right and treating people with dignity. And yes, I think that if you look at the bad ones too long, you're gonna just don't implode.
And unfortunately, the news only tells us about bad people.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of good people in the world. When COVID hit, we have the cutest little guy who is very severely disabled, who's not going to live to adulthood, who wanted to do something special for his birthday. And our local law enforcement and EMTs and firefighters all did a parade in front of his house.
Yeah, it's nice.
And here's this little guy in his wheelchair, and he's just happy as could be. His mama's just bawling her eyes out, and there's just really good people. They go into that field for a reason, because they want to help people. Just like I opened a vape shop because I wanted to help people.
Yeah, it was really, I started to get, during the COVID, when I started getting really emotional, was when I started seeing all the videos started coming out. People want to be around other people, and it was just amazing seeing the video of the guy just singing in Italian out his window, and then just the whole town, everybody on that block just coming out and singing and seeing.
I like that one.
Yeah, and then just seeing, parents, when your kids are little, those birthdays are big. They're huge, and it was just awesome seeing parents have their friends just drive by with signs saying happy birthday, and her sitting, out on the lawn while her friends would drop a package off and sing happy birthday and drive on. I was like, that's creative. That's, it was that stuff got me. I was like, because it was getting pretty bad there in the beginning of COVID, where everybody was just kind of locked down and nobody was going anywhere. And then it just seemed like the news cycle said, hey, we've got to put something positive out there because it's getting fucking ugly. And then all of a sudden those videos started coming out. And I was like, this is awesome. This is us. This is society, so it was nice. Last fun question. If you were alone in the White House for 1 hour, what would you do? All by yourself, Skip. 1 hour.
I don't know. Gosh, I've been to Washington, D.C. twice, and I have not been in the White House.
Yeah, but this is by yourself, man. You can do anything you want.
and there's no one there, of course.
There's no one there.
She can't sit down with. Okay.
I would take a case of Post-it notes, and on each one I would write "Vaping saves lives," and I'd wallpaper every hallway in the White House with that message.
Nice.
I like it.
I like it. We've had some very creative answers to that question, from taking one battery out of every single remote.
It's still in the attics.
Where's that stupid? As you well know, I invented Post-it notes. No,
yeah.
I think that's a great.
Can we borrow some money then?
Yeah.
It's all tied up in stocks. buddy.
It's all tied up in
Yeah, it's all tied up in
stock
stocks.
options.
I can't
CDs,
remove
and
it
mutual
early.
funds.
I have to pay a huge penalty on that.
We've had run around naked for an hour. We've had sleep in Lincoln's room naked. We've had all kinds of great responses to that question. Oh, what was that?
And I should have thought about that. I could have prepared for your little questions. I didn't even think of doing that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, these. Yeah, we will be switching these up. The rest of the team is going to have to come up with some new questions to ask, during the week for our guests. I think it's just a good way to lighten things up, and because we usually most likely most of the time we're talking about something pretty, severe. So it's a good way to kind of just slow down a little bit and have a little bit of fun.
I like it.
Yeah,
Make people think on their feet,
You wouldn't sing, so
no, that's not happening.
I like that too.
You guys could sing to me. Let's see.
All right, give us a song that you learned when you were younger that me, Tim, and Philip and Jeffrey will sing.
I honestly don't sing.
Honey, it's been a long time since I was young, man. Yeah, Beach Boys.
We can do Beach Boys, right, guys?
No,
No. That requires harmony and pitch.
I'm thinking either Pearl Jam's "Breathe," which I listen to about 20 times today, when I have trouble with emotional regulation. That helps level me out.
Yeah.
Or Disturbed's "Sound of Silence."
Oh gosh, I can't do Disturb. I can't do that.
Well, that's not actually Disturbed's song.
I know, but I like that.
I don't even know how
version.
it goes. Actually, well, we can sing the Dandy Warhol's version of Hell's Bells, but no one knows that.
Hold on.
Timmy's got it.
Hold your horses there. Might be able to pull out a chorus.
Hey, this group has sung.
Yeah, you need to check that out.
We've done the Beatles. This group has sung the Little Teapot song. So
oh my goodness!
I sang Roxanne by the Police. Come on, man.
Maybe you guys can follow along. All right. Maybe you can follow along. All right. I'm gonna start a line, and then you guys can jump in. All right. You ready? So I'm gonna start with the first verse. Okay. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I know I sang the wrong note there.
Yeah, you did.
I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly is that right? Creeping, left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains with the sound of silence. Okay, that's the best I'm gonna
get. Yeah,
I was not about to go high Art Garfunkel on that. But, let's just say that I would never recover.
Version is way more get you in the gut,
Yeah.
You may or may not. There's a cover of AC/DC's Hell's Bells by a band called the Dandy Warhols. There's a video of it on YouTube with little French puppetry to the background. It's moody, but it's such a cool version. I mean,
I'll have to watch that.
I think you'll like it.
Mallory put the Larry's out there for us. She's like these. Well, we did our best. We did.
Thank you, Mallory.
Tim.
Mallory.
Yeah.
So you were talking about all the sides getting together and having a conversation.
Yeah.
Do you really believe the Vape Fam could agree on goals and trade-offs and come up with one and bring it to the table?
Probably not. I think everybody. I think even in the vape space alone, we all have our own theories, ideas, and resolutions, right? So, I mean, one easy argument could be the side of the camp that is vehemently against disposables, that are just like they've ruined the vape industry. They should have never been brought on the market. They've kind of train wrecked the whole idea that that we do have. All these other different mediums that we can work with that make a lot more sense instead of this sort of like fatty kind of, quick hit in and out of the store, disposable thing that's ruining the ecosystems because of batteries and then you've got the other side to say, but they serve a purpose, right? So in terms of tobacco harm reduction, disposables may be what certain people have access to and not the other stuff. And that is something that they tried other things and that didn't work for them, but disposables do. And in the sense that a lot of us advocate, we kind of come from a singular space where it is, where we say, look, I don't care what it is that you're vaping, as long as you're vaping. Find the thing that works for you and stay with that. As long as it keeps you from going back to smoking or continuing to smoke, then that's a success. So I do think that internally within the vape fam, if we want to use kind of buzzwords, whatever, I think it would be a long road as well. I think, we'd have to concede. So this brings up sort of my $1 million question that I like to ask people in advocacy and people who are just vapors in general. So I'll ask you, Skip, and no answer is wrong. This is a completely hypothetical question. So this question is not meant to offend in any way or make people think that I'm pushing them into a corner to say whatever you say is your absolute answer. But when we used to have like the 10 questions about what's your story, where did you start, what was your first device, what e-liquid kept you from vape. My question at the end of it was, if the federal government knocked on your day and they said, Skip, we love your work, we love what you're doing, we're still not the biggest fans of vaping, but we're going to give you an offer that maybe you can't refuse. If there's one thing that you could remove from the vape space, one thing that you would be willing to concede about vaping in general, and you could say goodbye to that and concede that we'll give you everything
and
else.
Keep everything else.
What would be the one thing? And keep everything else, right? What would be the one thing that you could say?
She gets
if I was given that offer, here's the one thing I could say yes. Let's throw that away.
Perfect timing,
And you're not
Mr.
bound
Tim.
to this. I'm just curious.
The reason I asked you what I asked you is because I did a little experiment on Twitter a couple weeks ago. Phillip might have seen it.
I most certainly did.
I asked the vaping community if an offer was on the table that they would not ban vaping if you agreed to plain packaging. One thing. Black and white, like the generic food in the 80s, and they would not ban vaping. And the vaping community lost their frickin' minds.
Yep.
And they argued with
not
me.
Not this consumer, but I did watch everybody else lose their minds. Yes.
Yes. That's not the question. I go, yes, that's the question. This is hypothetical. This is me. It is my question. No, you can't give them an inch. They'll take a mile. You cannot trust them, blah, blah. And most of the people would not agree. And so I'm like, you are just like tobacco control, because if you won't agree to that and we're going to ban thing after thing after thing, you're agreeing to do what you hate them doing. And that is, you're making it easier to smoke than vape. Yeah. Now, if we cannot agree to one thing, give one thing, if that was really on the table, how are we ever going to end the war?
That's right.
And the truth is, I remember that thread, and you were engaging for a very long time, in the replies with a couple of people who were simply they were immovable on this one point, which, to reiterate, plain packaging. Everything else stays the same. All of your favorite products, mods, tanks, coils, everything identifiable simply in plain packaging.
White, black letters.
Exactly. Just
I make my own juice. Can you tell?
We all have our little juice bottles that we use, don't we? Yes. So everything's all it will lack are the skull and crossbones, blah blah blah. So that's in my humble opinion a ridiculously tiny ask. And I think you went back and forth, and this is why I observed and did not get involved with a couple of people that simply would not stay why they were so vehemently opposed to the idea and how they would not ever give that up. And they could not, for the life of them, answer your question. And you were very, very polite, very thoughtful, said, I understand your position. Can you tell me why you feel that way? And not one person could say that, could tell you or explain to you why they felt so strongly. All they could say was, nope, not going to give it to him.
Well,
You know,
this goes back all the way to 2012,
I hate to
2016.
say I
mean, it
wasn't
was the
necessarily
retail markets.
surprised.
Yeah, there was the retail markets pissed off at the websites. The websites were pissed off at the manufacturers. I mean, it goes way back. And in the early beginning of vaping, everybody was just out, just no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I was just like thinking, and this is prior to regulations. And I'm like, this is going to end up being something that's going to end up being regulated, guys. I mean, if we can't agree on how to work this out, it's never going to go anywhere. I mean,
Well,
it was
there are a
bad.
lot of shop owners that need to speak on behalf of the people they serve. And let's just, as a consumer, I've always enjoyed my perspective as being never had a cent really to gain, spent lots of money, losing lots of money advocating for vaping. But let's just say there's a fairly large contingent of vape shop owners who are always going to come off as sounding very profit balance oriented. Okay, and that's all right, but it's not. Let's just say I don't believe that is the framing we want to come with. Okay.
here in Costa Rica, we have regulations since 2012. And actually, at this very moment, the organization that I'm a president of, that is the consumer organization here, we're fighting a bill that is trying to put plain packaging on vaping products. Curiously. And we're fighting that bill. Obviously, we already have the products regulated. We fought a bill that it was trying to implement 100% tax on vaping products. We managed to lower it down to 20% at the end.
Really?
Right? Unfortunately, because we took it as a loss, because obviously risk proportionate, it should have not been taxed, right? But I do get the point not to give an inch because, we have 11 years fighting still. And at this present time,
but this was a hypothetical. I mean, truly, like just something where she wanted people to answer the question, would you be willing to give this up? And it was a thought experiment.
Yes.
And let's just say a lot of people just, I don't know. It sounds a lot like, I don't know, you're Simon Chapman, not ever wanting to be found wrong.
And I agree. Jeffrey, you are right. It is, it was Tobacco 21, then limiting license holders, limiting locations, limiting flavors, limiting packaging. There is no offer ever on the table. This is it. And I don't know if there ever will be. And it sucks. So I get people saying I can't, but this, Philip, you're right. It was a hypothetical, because people keep saying they won't talk to us. They're all bad. They're all evil. And they're not. There are some really good people in tobacco control and public health that believe in what we're doing. They believe consumers deserve a voice. They believe these products help people. But the vape fam likes to throw them all in one basket. They're all bad and they're all evil. And if they post anything on Twitter that people don't agree with completely, like the results of a study they did, even if part of it was positive, they hone in on the negative. When the SRNT 15 came out, there are things in there that I definitely don't agree with. But most of the vape family lost their minds over the part they don't agree with. And I don't think these people realize on either side, the only people that win or lose, the losers are the people that die from smoking. And the winners are the people who never start smoking or successfully quit. Yeah. All these people involved in policy have no business trying to win or lose. And that's, we got to compromise. And nobody's willing to do that.
And I think journalism's, Catherine Foley from Politico did write a very thoughtful piece on the FDA's plans to ban menthol and the current situation with menthol vapes not being authorized. And I felt it was important to give her a props, because it was a very balanced article. Yeah. And I want to say thank you to you right now, because you're the one who taught me to look out for someone who has not particularly been kind to the vaping news in political in the past. And she wrote a really good article yesterday. So there you have it.
Yeah, I think in the early beginnings, I think we had a disadvantage, and just the shop owners and some of the websites, and I think is a lot of it was to do with some very young people owning businesses that went all of a sudden went from starting a $10,000 business to making a good $1 million a year, and I think a lot of those people didn't take into consideration regulations were going to come. And most of them didn't lawyer up. Most of them just said, "Hey, I'm going to close down, going to move on to the next thing." But there were a few of them that were very passionate and they wanted to save this industry, and they tried their best. And I think some were loud, some were quiet in the background, some just used their money to help them try to get through. But I think a lot of those people that went on to the next thing are those shops that you were talking about, the hybrid shops. And a lot of those guys just said, "Hey, we can't stay functional. We can't stay in business. And we're going to move into this industry." And it's sad, but I think they took advantage of a group that was very young, not very business oriented.
Zero business experience.
Zero business experience at all. And I think they were smart. They were smart on what they did. And I still to this day think that our biggest mistake, and I understand, don't get me wrong, I understand the reason behind it, but getting vaping to be considered a cigarette tobacco product was the biggest, stupidest move we made. We should have continued fighting that first, because giving in to them, I think that just set the next chess piece for them. They go, if we can get this product considered a tobacco product, all these other pieces fall into play for us. And that's where we're at now with PMTAs. I hate saying this because I know a lot of money went into these PMTAs with these companies, but I cannot think they're going to let any of these brands get through. I really don't. I think this is just a ploy to get money from these guys and to move along, because if it contains flavors, it's not going to get passed. I really don't believe. I don't care how much money we dump into this. Those products are not going to get past the PMTAs. I really don't.
Yeah, but I just want to coattail on you a little bit there, John, and just raise another point in relationship to what you said, and that was that that it was a major fault of ours to kind of allow them to lump vaping into the tobacco framework, right? Because I mean, there will be people out there that'll say, "Oh, you should quit smoking. It's bad. It kills people." But if you counter that with the idea that tends to be the one thing that they leave alone in this whole entire fight. So vaping gets lumped in with tobacco, and then that was our ultimate downfall, because somehow we paired up with tobacco, but they seem to leave tobacco alone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They leave the thing that's accessible and convenient, and you can get over the counter without prescriptions and all that. But vaping, they want to demonize it as a tobacco product. Well, you can't have two things in the same category and then give one a virtual pass, and then the other one say that is the absolute end of everybody's existence on this planet if you allow vaping to continue to be available.
And regulation wise, that's what we're stuck with, because they can't take cigarettes off the market.
But remember that in 2012, it was previous.
Maybe the Tobacco Control Act wasn't the great idea that we all thought it was, huh?
What, Jeffrey?
2012, it was previous the Royal College of Physicians, previous Public Health England, all the science that we take for granted and we know, right? It was previous all that stuff. So how can they defend their position that it was not just another tobacco product because it had nicotine?
Well, I think it was like, in that beginning when that was all coming into play, again, like we talked about, a lot of people that have zero business experience whatsoever. A lot of them were doing it for the right reasons. They found something to help them quit smoking. But when they said yes to that just, like I said, that was the next chess piece for them. They knew exactly, they had, from that point on, the FDA and the federal government knew exactly what their next steps were, and to where we're at today. And I think the lack of experience, because I think that's something we should have continued fighting for, like we're doing right now. Let's get this to court. Let's get this to where it needs to go. Because let's be honest. I mean, do you feel that the general public, the consumer, really has a choice anymore on anything that's being put out there anymore? If the FDA doesn't want something out there, they're not going to put it out there. I mean, you take it, for instance, the vitamin people. Look how long they had to fight just to get vitamins on the shelf.
For Christ's sake. Yeah.
Did you hear another PMTA was filed today?
Oh, the Jewel 2.
Yeah.
I tried the Jewel 2. I like it.
I mean,
can you ban a product that it does have user limitations for kids, for young people? Because the thing with the Jewel 2 is they have a Bluetooth app that it blocks the usage of minors.
Yep.
Right? That's the kind of the thing for the. Right?
And you can't use a counterfeit pod in it. It won't fire.
Yeah, but let me tell you, kids are smart and they know how to use computers, people. They know how to hack phones. I mean, I watched the other day an 8-year-old hack a friggin' iPhone so he could put Android on it. He was 8. I was like, are you friggin' kidding me? I said, how's this Bluetooth bullshit going to stop some kid? All I see is one kid or a few of them in high school saying, hey, yeah, for $15, I'll make that work for you. Yeah.
I can't even work my iPhone.
Hey, capitalism works, baby.
Yeah, it's capitalism. It's exactly
I did a lot of research on my trip to and from Jackson. They were having an Enjoy sale at Love's Truck Stop, and I did buy the Ace. It's not terrible.
It's not terrible.
The tobacco is nasty. I don't remember.
It is terrible. The tobacco is not good at all. I actually think it might be better than the Juul tobacco, which is just dreck. But the menthol was noticeably, the draw on the menthol was so restrictive that it burned almost immediately. Maybe they were getting rid of the older pods that they had in stock, but it was only. But
when the FDA started handing out all the MDOs, the marketing denial orders, I went out and bought, the Enjoy and the Juul and whatever to try all the different products so I could make recommendations to my customers, because it looked like open systems were going to die. So I have this whole collection of.
Yeah, I was going to do a thread on this because I finally tried them all, and they all. Compared to your own, open like a Caliburn or something, they're all very much efficient. But what did you think of your comparisons?
I liked the Juul 2 the best. I am not good at stealth vaping, and now that I've had to take a couple of business trips, the original Juul, I can stealth vape in a bathroom at an airport and not get caught.
I thought you were going to say some stealth vaping courses. I was like, where do you sign up for that?
I have had to learn the very, very hard and really embarrassing way how to stealth vape, because let's just say when a stewardess asks you to stop vaping and you're right next to who you consider your stepson, it's not a proud moment. No,
I did not vape in the airplane. I like to sit by the window. I have a thing. I like to sit in the window seat behind the wing, and I like to watch the clouds and the parts move and whatever. And I am not a teeny tiny person, and I am not going to squish my big ass past 2 people to go to the bathroom and sneak a vape. So I vape in the bathroom in the airport before I get on the plane, and then allegedly. And then I use either lozenges or pouches on the plane.
I still vape. It's just never.
Are the toothpicks still out there? Are the nicotine toothpicks? Are they still out there? Nicotine toothpicks?
I don't know if they're legal, because they should have filed a PMTA, but they're still available around here. Yeah, they should have filed a PMTA.
Yeah, I know.
And I still use the patch sometimes to help me sleep, which is going to seem weird because nicotine's a stimulant. But I have ADHD, so it does the opposite to me. And I sometimes wear the patch just so I can turn off my brain enough to sleep.
All right, I got a quick question for you.
I wonder if it works for OCD.
Yeah, whatever works. That's the thing. In the beginning, everybody was always fighting. In the beginning, it was whatever works, and then it changed to no, this is better, that's better. And then no, disposables suck, and then the pod systems suck. And I was just like, hey, you know what? If that helps you, that helps you. I don't care what you're hitting. I don't care if you're using a high-end mod from friggin' Italy, or you're using something, a smock tech. I don't care. Whatever gets you through the day, that's fine with me. But I'm going to ask you again. This is kind of like you're taking a guess here, but what do you see happening in the next 5 years?
Am I answering that question?
Yeah.
Think Nobel laureates.
Well, obviously, some products have made it, and I'm sure more will. I think right now our biggest hope is what's happening in the court system. And like the Triton case, if we would get some major wins, that would help change things.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't like, and even though I personally, because I use nicotine to medicate my ADHD, I don't like that the only products that have gotten marketing orders are high nicotine products, because it's not fair to people that don't want or need that much nicotine.
Right.
And in my shop, I was really good at helping people quit smoking and quit vaping. And we did it in steps. And what they're authorizing to stay on the market doesn't give people that opportunity. So now all these studies are coming out how to help people quit vaping. And they're using what they used to help them quit smoking. Well, you know what, dumbasses? NRTs is a step down in nicotine. If you'd authorize the open systems, we could do all that without having to, do pharmaceutical shit.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we're seeing a lot of researchers kind of branch out in terms of what they would like to see the FDA authorize. Recently, I've been seeing a little more support for open systems. If maybe I'm imagining it.
I don't have a lot of hope for flavors in the near future. And that really bugs me, because I have not found a tobacco vape that I like, commercial or homemade. And you wouldn't believe how many kinds of flavors I have in the back room.
Watson is actually not bad.
Flavored my tobacco, I don't like it.
I'm the same way as you are. It has to have that other extra flavor in it.
Yes.
For me to get through it, it has to have that other extra. Do you think there's going to be a little bit of a change with the administration?
Yeah. I was hoping, when Biden came out with his cancer moonshot, I was hoping that some genius in DC would go, "Oh, cancer, smoking. Hey." But I don't know where that is. But
banning menthol cigarettes is going to solve everything. Trust me on this one.
And I'm a freedom person, so I don't like forcing people to do anything. I would feel better about them taking menthol off the market, menthol cigarettes, even though I don't approve, if we had a comparable menthol vape that people could switch to. I just think it's cruel to just jerk it away from people.
And under the wrong kind of the rationale behind the menthol ban is that tobacco companies have targeted minority communities with their advertising and trapped them in addiction. That's been shown to be dubious at best in research about hypothetical bans. But let me ask you something. You just said you doubt very much that flavors are going to be authorized
in the near future.
Do you include menthol in that? Okay, because I agree. The menthol ban is not going to create anything but criminals, in my opinion, and I strongly believe that. And in particular, if they do not provide consumers with a palatable substitute.
And then I'm afraid they'll just smoke instead of quitting they'll smoke regular. I have a question for you guys, though, while we're talking about flavors. I assume all of you smoked at one time. Mm-hmm. And when you started smoking, was it regular or menthol?
Regular.
In reds, baby.
Yeah, I started smoking when I was 10. They were my grandpa's straights, no filter, no menthol, whatever. And how many millions of children have started smoking and it was tobacco? So if vape had never been anything other than tobacco, do you think it would have grown as much as it has, or had become as popular with adolescents as it did?
Ooh.
No.
Can I say depends on
I
that?
also think it would never have become as popular with adults who want to quit smoking.
Go ahead, Tim.
I want to say that depends, because I think there's two schools of thought on this one, and I hate to get diverse here, but I feel like there is the by proxy kids who pick up a habit because it exists in their orbit all their lives. So at home, people who drink at home, a parent who drinks, or a parent who smokes. So their exposure to that is very early on and consistent as they grow up. And then you have you have the coming of age kid who's like peer pressure, or they try something because they want to experiment because they're growing up, and that tends to be part of the vernacular as we age. We want to break the rules. We want to push it. So I think the ultimate answer is probably not. No, I don't think it would become as popular, but I still think you'd get some of the riffraff that happened with or without flavors, meaning that kind of fatty kind of thing. It was this taboo forbidden fruit thing that the kids weren't supposed to have, and they're like, oh, I got to get my hands on that.
I would not have quit smoking if it was a tobacco flavor that helped me stop smoking, but it was a variety of flavors that helped me finally quit smoking.
Yeah, and I agree with you there.
I'm not an accidental quitter.
Yeah.
I am.
I agree with you.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Please go ahead.
I agree with, I think, what everybody was trying to chime in on. And the thing is, when I got started around 2011, there weren't a whole lot of flavors available. It was cigarette replicas that they were pushing. It was the Red 24 or whatever, and that was supposed to be your Marlboro Red vape alike, and then you had, some mints and menthols and things like that. So our choices were limited then, but we still persisted with it because we also had the mindset that I want to quit this other thing, and this other thing is reasonably better for me to engage in than continuing to try to smoke and hopefully find another way off of it. So I do think that tobacco served its purpose, but I think there were far too many people that were like, I need a little something else. And then the people who are making vapes are like, well, let's try cherry, or let's try grape, or let's try some basics to see if that doesn't help. And then that's probably where the rocket took off. And it was
Praise those guys. Praise
holy
those
crap,
guys.
I can throw 35 different things into a jug and shake it up and call it the rainbow. And then somebody's like, oh my God, and they'll never go back to a tobacco vape or a menthol vape.
It's that guy that invented that first pecan.
The other thing that we're not thinking about, how many high school kids, instead of the lowest percentage in history, what percent of high school kids would be smoking right now if tobacco was the only flavored vape to ever be available? And I have to ask, I have to think that perhaps, look, them being enjoyable and desirable and pleasurable, it has everything to do with transitioning away with that which will kill you.
Yeah.
And I think that weighing the different benefits, and I think that there is no question what is innovation has helped, not hurt.
Well, let me ask you guys this question, because if it would have came out, let's go back to the blues, and let's say if this would have came out as a product that was dedicated to harm reduction right at the beginning, and it would have been a prescription only model, would we have gotten the innovation? Would we have gotten the success that we have with people not smoking today?
Technology.
No way.
I think we were the ones who got Nicorette to go fruity flavors and mint.
I think a lot of it was.
There was flavored NRT.
Yeah.
NRT has never come in tobacco flavor.
No.
But it is so time consuming and cost prohibitive to go the medicinal route that you never would have had the innovation and the advancements in technology that we've had.
Or
And
the,
I
I
think
don't think
It is question. Actually, was NRT lozenges passed? Was it prescription only? For a while?
originally they
Oh, yeah,
were,
originally,
yes.
okay,
Yep.
it was.
Yep.
I don't know when it became OTC, but it's been a long time. And
There was a
now-
lot of pushback for nicotine gum to not be available because it's gonna be enticing the kids.
enticing the kids. Yeah, I think too. One of the major factors that vaping was so successful in the beginning was the fact that it was ex-smokers. It was guys that were trying to quit smoking that were opening up shops and sharing their passion, their story. I think that was a lot to do with it. I think if they would have came out with a product that you needed a prescription for, everybody would have assumed, okay, who's involved? And who would have been involved?
And
RJ
actually,
Reynolds.
it wasn't even shops. It was the do-it-yourselfers on
Yeah,
those good
the guys in their
old-fashioned
garage and their bathrooms. Yeah.
on those forums and message boards
Yeah,
that took really shitty products and figured out how to make their own
Absolute-
device.
e-cigarette form. Absolutely.
Yep, and then started screwing around with
What did you have?
making
Tim,
their
in
own
the blues?
liquids.
What was in the blues? It was cherry, menthol, tobacco, and there was one other damn flavor, wasn't there? 4
Mint.
in the blue. The blue was 3. Was it 3? Cherry, tobacco, menthol. That was it.
I don't remember.
Tim, do you remember what was in your blue package? Cherry, I remember being one of them.
Might have been coffee.
Yes.
Might have been.
The only thing that ever would tide me over when I ran out of this juice, Boba's Bounty. Well, I actually had to start with Totally Wicked and importing that from the UK, 36 milligram, because I had a really dedicated habit, passionate. But the only over the counter cig-alike that ever really was satisfying to me when I had to tie myself over was the Logic Platinum. And that was a 24 milligram, 2.4% cig-alike that had, cartridges, and it was really strong. It had a profoundly satisfying throat hit. And the rest of them were fairly weak by comparison.
Well, here you go. What was all your guys' experiences when I don't know if you all started with blues and cig-alites, but what was your experience when you hit that first vape where it was the sub-ohm tank or was an I don't know. I went from cig-alites to RDAs like right away. That was my thing. There was no transition into sub tanks or anything like that. I went from blues to an RDA. I was like, whoa, I can save money by making my own coils. I can buy cotton. I can do all this. And I went that route. And that first initial hit, I was like, whoa, hello, this is a whole different experience. Do I think blues would have helped? Would I still be using blues today? Probably not. I probably would have went back to smoking cigarettes, but
I have an artifact.
Hey guys, we got to go because Skip works really early.
We're good, but John,
you
need to check your Twitter messages because before we leave tonight, I want you to post the picture I sent you in Twitter.
Oh, you want me to post it here on the show, or?
Yes.
Okay, I could do it right now.
I started with a vape pen, and them little skinny tanks. And a tobacco flavor, and I hated it. And the only reason I vaped is because my son opened a vape shop, and I'm mom. I got to hang out. I got to help him. And he hated me sneaking out the back door for a smoke. So he banned me from smoking at his shop, a little puke. And so I vaped at the shop and smoked the rest of the time.
You want me to post that photo of the summary?
Of my donation.
Okay, yeah, hold on.
So when Sub-Ohm came out, I think my first tank was the Atlantis. Then I started vaping more and more, and then one day I went, oh shit, I don't know the last time I had a cigarette. I did not say the bad word the whole time, right?
No, but you can say it now. No,
I can't. No. But I said if I don't say the bad word, I'm going to donate $50. And if I make it through the show without saying the bad word, I'm donating $100 to CASA.
Oh, nice.
Today, I have had a hard time letting go of the shop. I'm serious. I'm still sitting in my old shop, and it's been a year and a half. I'm paying rent to use this big, huge space as an office. I'm an idiot. But some of my old inventory, all my display cases, my label printer, everything is still here. And
Wow.
today I parted with 2 cases for $100. And it made me cry to let go of a piece of my shop.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to spend it on myself. I wanted my shop to help people one last time. And CASA does a good job of fighting
Yes,
for all of us.
Yes, they do.
That
Thank you,
$100
Skip.
went to CASA today.
Fantastic.
Skip.
That
I would
is
expect nothing less, actually. Thank you. And thank you for everything you do. I've
thank
learned
you
a
for-
lot from you over the last few years, and whether or not you know it, there are a lot of people just like me, and I don't really listen
like you.
to
There's more people like you out there. Jesus Christ.
No, actually, there's no one like me. But let's just say that
There you
if
go.
I was, if I unintentionally learned something important and was able to emulate something that Skip does, that's very positive, that's had a positive impact on how I conduct myself. Let's just say anybody can do that, because I'm a little on the
you.
hard-headed side. You're very welcome. Thank you.
And I have a reputation for being stubborn. And when I first got involved with advocacy, I hooked up with some very committed, passionate people who are tired of the BS, and they fight hard and they fight dirty. And that's how I learned to advocate. And I was very frustrated that I couldn't get beyond my bubble, and nobody was listening to me other than other people who vape. And I really owe Joe Gitchell a lot, because he's the one that said, if it's not working, maybe you should make new mistakes. I am a nice person, so why not go be nice? And learn to talk to people and listen, not listen so I know what to say back, but to try to put myself in their shoes and hear where they're coming from, and try to find. He used to give me fun assignments. Like, remember a couple years ago on the Truth Initiative came out with their statement on harm reduction?
Yeah.
Oh man, did that piss me off. So Joe told me to go through it and find what I could agree with or be close to agreeing with, and start learning to seek common ground instead of what I want to fight. And that has changed my whole strategy.
I would say, for those of you who do not know Joe Gitchell, he is, let's just say, if you don't have a Twitter account and you have a bit of anger management issues, his Twitter feed would be worth getting or making a Twitter account just to follow that.
Yep. And I like to read and watch things, and I have a daily self-care list. It's part of how I take care of my mental health. And I like to learn something new every day and read something just to learn. And he has given me a lot of things on why don't people change their minds, or, how to talk to people and seek the middle. And he has some very excellent resources.
Yeah.
No, and I
That's
think that,
that's all I want. I just want, like Tim brought up, it would be just nice if everybody could I know I'm living in the fantasy world, but everybody just sit down for once and just air it all out. Share with us what you want, what you don't want, and we'll share with you what our ideas are, and let's try to find some sort of common ground and get this done, because this is just, and I do have friends that laugh, and I'm sure all of you do too. They're like, dude, there's so much other bullshit to worry about that's going on in the world than your vape shit. And that's what I get from a couple of my friends that are, they're like, dude, John, you understand what's going on in the world? I'm like, yeah, I get what's going on in France. I get what's going on in the UK and in Ukraine and all that other stuff. But yeah, this is important to me, and millions and millions of other people. So if you can share your stories of why you're upset what's going on in the Ukraine, I can share my stories of why I'm upset what's going on in the vape community, so it works both ways. I thought we were going to get that with Trump. and who knows, we might still get that with
You
Trump.
know, and we did get all those people at the table, but what pissed me off about all those
Yeah, we
people
know
at
where
the
you're going.
table,
Yeah,
where
we
were
know
the
where you're going.
consumers?
Yeah.
If there's a
There
pain
were-
mom at that table, where was a mom like me who almost lost her kid to smoking?
Yeah,
That's
he's
what
got a
was
seat.
wrong with that table.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
why wasn't Alex Clark from CASA invited to sit at
Yep.
that table?
Yep.
Where was our voice? That's what makes me mad.
Yep.
I
And
cannot tell
and
you
Dave
how
had
much
like
I agree with you.
PAVE had like 2 months been
Yeah,
established.
yeah.
Yeah. If you want to read a good book, it's called High Conflict by Amanda Ripley. Joe recommended it to me. It is very well written. She's really good at conflict resolution. And the book takes stories of people in situations of high conflict, and she tells their story throughout the book. It's an excellent resource.
Yeah.
Never heard this
That's
one.
all. I think that's all we want. We just want to be heard. And I'm not talking about the business side or the manufacturers of the web. Just the consumers just want to be heard.
Wow.
Amen.
Yeah,
And they
that's it.
deserve to be heard.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to do policy, the policy should involve the people that policy affects. You know, and you'll see, you know, P or Truth or whoever will say the survey supports X amount of people wanting a menthol ban or a flavor ban or blah, 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 blah. But that survey is of the general public, all of society, who have been spoon-fed misinformation for years.
Yeah.
And think they're voting for a good thing and have no idea how much it hurts people.
Yep.
You know, every day I sit here at my computer and I work, and sometime through the day I bust out in tears every day because it'll cross my mind, we haven't done enough yet today. 1,300 of our fellow Americans are going to die from smoking today,
Yeah.
every
Mhm.
day.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't stop to think about that.
Yeah. Tim hates me because I used to tell him during our earlier shows, dude, try to find something positive, will you? For the news. And Tim was like, where am I going to find this?
Well, I think for a
It's out
while
there.
I think for a while, you know, we had, like you said, those small wins that kind of gave us that fleeting hope that, you know, the little win would continue to resonate and result in bigger wins down the road. And then we just take 1, 2, 3, 4 huge gut punches in a row. And so you try to hunt for that ray of hope in all of it, you know, and that's what we latch onto, because I want to believe that, you know, and I hope it's in our lifetimes, that a lot of this nonsense and bullshit can get dropped and we can actually employ vaping and use it for what it was naturally intended for, instead of having to haggle and argue over the perimeter stuff, which taints it all. And that's, you know, you know, youth usage and the harms of nicotine and depression and like and our loss of hair and ED and all this dumb stuff that we end up spending on, you know, unusually unnecessary amounts of time on, that we know are just farcical things that they love to throw out there. And it's always followed up with could, can, might, possibly, you know, there's no absolutions. It's just, you know, like if I go in my kitchen right now and I completely consume that entire box of Splenda, you know, I could die of, you know, of a saccharin overdose or something. It's like,
no, look, I go through probably 10 packs of saccharin every day, and I feel great. God damn it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just finish the point with saying that I think that really the one thing that I would like the regulators to look at is just that general premise that we're engaging in this. We're making the choice because of how we've educated ourselves on this premise. So as long as we're making that conscious choice and it's something that we want to engage in, why do you, big government, need to be involved in my life? As long as I'm not harming anybody else around me and I'm not standing out front of the CVS blowing huge clouds of vapor into some guy who's never smoked and never vaped in his face like a belligerent asshole, and I'm not in general terms harming anyone, why are you so vested in my personal choices?
Exactly.
Need to remember nothing in life is safe.
Of course. No, you're right.
I could get killed
Nothing.
crossing the street today. I could drink too much water and die.
Exactly.
You know?
And so why doesn't the government spend a lot of time trying to ban vehicles? I mean, yes, they are in a way. I don't want to get into political conversation, but I'm just saying, you know, why don't they spend their days at the table trying to ban vehicles and stuff like that? Because everyone has an opportunity to use a tool, and there's a right way and a wrong way to use the tool. And even when you use something the right way with good intentions, bad things can happen. So, but everything out there, it has some potential risk. You know, I could go take a walk right now, and some pit bull could run out of the woods and kill me. So should we ban dogs? Should we ban walking? Like,
yes, ban those pit bulls.
Yeah. So
hey, I have a pity, and he's a good boy.
Yeah, no,
this is why we call it harm reduction, not harm eradication.
And I'm not trying to pigeonhole.
There's no such thing as the latter.
I'm not trying to pigeonhole a specific breed. I'm just saying that all conceptual things have some risk that could potentially manifest itself from that thing, that device, that hobby, that thing that we're engaged in. But I think the bottom line still comes down to, as long as we're making the choice, as long as we're choosing to do this because we are vested in this and we believe that this is the answer to dealing with, you know, our previous addiction or harmful engagement, you know, then just leave me alone. You know what I mean? Leave me alone.
So, is an innocuous dependency still an addiction? I guess that's a philosophical question. These are all philosophical questions. Where does, you know, our agency as adults and as, you know, former smokers and people who vape, where does the government cross the line in actually, you know, regulating that? These are all questions that you have to. Everyone has their own line that should never be crossed. But yes, you're right. More and more we're seeing headlines saying this. Yes, walking in, you know, flip-flops can, you know, lead to, I don't know, stubbed toes. Ban them. It's just a little silly. But I also
rid of the Crocs. Get rid of the
I
Crocs.
also think that the amount of attention that we give it dictates how important it is. So it's important that we remember that we need to pick and choose who we talk to about vaping and vaping regulation, whether it be in the government or in the scientific community. We have to be very discerning and choose carefully.
Yeah.
And
when a pair of Crocs end up on some Pacific
Jeffrey
island,
make his point.
Then when a pair of Crocs end up on some Pacific island, they'll ban them. So yeah, that's
reefs. They gotta go. You can keep your Crocs. The reefs are evil and they must be destroyed.
What were you going to say, Jeffrey?
No, I was going to say that we deserve a seat at the table. You know, the people that are the stakeholders of this conversation need to have a saying. You know, the people who smoke, the people who vape, and it's actually contemplated on the United Nations program about drugs, that somebody who is a consumer should be involved in the decision making for regulation. And that's what we should fight about. Because we're not.
Well, I think that we keep lines of communication open with people who advocate for opioid harm reduction, safe supply, marijuana. It's important that we are constantly making allies, and at the very least, not isolating ourselves. It's important that we are talking to people who are, basically trying to accomplish the same end that we are, saving lives. It's just, perhaps we've been a little insular. I don't know.
Do you know what I want? If you look at how much money is being spent on the war over vaping, and you look at the recent numbers, and over 40% of kids who vape say they vape because they're depressed and anxious and stressed out. Yeah. Why aren't we spending money learning about why kids vape or smoke or drink or stick a needle in their arm? Yep. The kids that are bullied and hungry and without a home, and doing things about the things that make kids want to do substances because their lives suck and they feel like shit.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing something about that?
Well, if you look at it, other than T21, Honestly, other than that, what other laws have been passed to stop teens from buying cigarettes or
Tax-
stop them from buying
Taxes.
vapes?
Taxes.
Taxes, that's just burning in us. That's just a burden on us. That doesn't hurt them whatsoever because mom and dad is still going to put the money on the table.
I'm far more concerned about teen depression and teen suicide and
Well,
teen
yeah, no, I
binge
know
drinking
that
and
part,
things like
but I'm
that
just saying
because
they want to wipe out a whole industry that's benefiting millions and millions of people worldwide. But yet, other than T21, there hasn't been any other regulation or law set to try to or money put aside to help stop that. Where have you seen any programs being implemented with money, federal money, to try to stop teens from buying, forcing vape shops and forcing convenience stores with heavy doses of fines to make them want to say, I don't want to. There's none other than changing the law from 18 to 21. If you go down the record, go down the list of every city or every state or whatever, you don't see any new regulations to try to stop it. You don't see any new fines. No, nothing. There's none of that. That's what blows me away. It's just where is your effort in the trying to stop the teen from buying it? Because there are none. There are none other than an age change. That's
Right.
it.
let's skip. I'd rather know why they're buying it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Prevention kind of makes more sense to me.
Bad
I
parenting. No, I'm
imagine
kidding.
you asked. I imagine you asked the Truth Initiative why they weren't asking those questions and looking into, well, why are they depressed? More importantly, why are they doing this? What, as opposed to, calling it what it is, a depression stick, which is highly stigmatizing and all kinds of. I don't want to get into it, but yeah,
You saw the Truth Initiative came out with a new report statement. Was it last week called Game Changer?
yes.
Talking about you get rid of tobacco control. It's the tobacco end game.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things in there that I don't agree with either.
I respectfully disagree. No, actually,
I found it hilarious. The first paragraph that it says, "We're not in favor of prohibitions, but we recommend banning."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of their big things was,
Oh
we
my
don't
God.
at the federal level, we're not going to criminalize kids for possession. It doesn't matter. I just read an article about some town somewhere that's doing a deal with the schools where kids are going to get charged.
We almost had that
criminalized
happen here.
for vaping in school.
Yeah.
We
Hey,
almost
you
had
know
that
what?
happen here, and thankfully
I
it's
broke a
been
window.
amended.
In the 80s, I broke a window. I paid for that fucking window. My parents
that's the
made me
Latter-day
pay.
Saint
I was
commercial.
punished for that. And that's not happening anymore. It's just like,
Do you remember that Latter-day Saints commercial? Who broke my window? I broke your window.
Yeah.
He told the truth. Remember that?
He said he doesn't sing.
It just,
did,
yeah.
didn't I?
I mean,
sang.
if
I'm
you
sorry,
don't
I blacked out for a moment.
if
I
you don't,
apologize.
it sucks that we have to
I'm sorry,
force
where were we?
parents to be parents. But I mean, that's the bottom line. Why should the federal government be forcing parents to be parents? They should be parents.
Well, how about
Well,
the parents
and-
asking the federal government to parent for them? That's
Well, yes
Can you
and
help me
no.
out?
Not every kid is the same.
No.
So
no.
yes, some kids are purposely rebelling and breaking the rules, and yes, they need to know that they should abide by the rules. You should never have me on a show because I just have stories up the ass. A couple of years ago, I got asked to speak to a couple parents in California who caught their 17-year-old, I think he was 17, high school kid vaping. And the mom, she was hot. And our first two Zoom meetings were literally her just screaming at me. I would have
thought
quit
you meant
talking.
something else.
No, she was hot. Not that kind of hot, Philip. Get your
That's
brain
where I went, Phil.
together,
Phil.
dude.
That's where I went too.
Right over my head.
I
was
love
angry.
Deirdre. No way.
And I called her
with
the
you, Philip.
angry mom. I wasn't even kind in how I talked about her. And Joe talked me into being patient and listening. And eventually she calmed down, and eventually I got to tell my son's story. And now we had something in common. Yeah. We were two moms whose children were being affected by nicotine. But as we talked, I started asking questions about him vaping, what he was like before he vaped and what he was like after he vaped. And, you know, your kid is supposed to like go to hell and be brain damaged and just fall off the face of the earth if they vape.
Yep.
It's the worst thing they could ever do.
Yeah.
He quit forgetting his backpack. His grades went up. He, you know, remembered to pick up his sister at work. Total ass backfire. Well, you got to remember that just shortly before that, I got all my diagnoses and I went, oh, does your kid have ADHD? No. Are you sure? So they had their kid tested, and guess what? He has
He's pregnant.
ADHD. Yeah. No, he has ADHD. I referred them to, God forgive me, the Truth Initiative's text message program to help young people quit vaping. And he went on meds and he quit vaping, and he's in college and he's doing really, really well. Yeah. So it started out as an angry mother yelling at, you know, an industry person with a vape shop. And by listening and talking and finding common ground, she has compassion now for why some people would vape. You know, it literally helped save my son's life, and it made a difference to her son. So it's important to get past that anger and to be patient with people who are angry and start asking questions. So that kid really didn't deserve to be punished, is the point. He was self-medicating. He didn't know it. His buddies vaped. He tried it. And, you know, I remember my first cigarette. It was like heaven. You know, you're supposed to cough and it's supposed to be icky and maybe you'll puke. No, sir. That very first cigarette was,
that first
I had the reverse
Lucky
effect.
Strike cigarette. What brand was it? I'm curious.
I think it was a Lucky Strike, if I remember right. It was no filter.
Right. I used to bite the filters off my mother's Benson and Hedges, and they were good. But let's just say that first Winston Red. Oh, hell yes, I coughed. Oof, damn.
See, I had my first cigarette, and I knew I wasn't going to heaven because I stole it from a priest. So I knew the heaven thing was out of the picture right there. I knew I had sinned, so I was done.
You're done. You're toast, man.
I'm Jewish. Like hell's a place with the best matzo ball soup and corned beef in the world, but no decent kosher pickles. I mean,
but then I realized that I can go to confession on Wednesday and wipe it clean. No, I'm kidding.
Do over.
I'm gonna try this confession thing just to see what happens.
No. Hey, Skip, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I'm going to let the guys say their goodbyes to you. Jimmy.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Skip, first of all, thank you for sharing in your kinship and your love for peanut butter with me. I think that's absolutely epic. I don't feel alone in this world anymore. So
You're not alone.
I do feel a lot more comfortable moving forward with my addiction. Because I can always just say, well, Skip eats peanut butter too. But beyond that, no, ultimately, I just want to say a humongous thank you to you for all of your hard work. Your dedication, your focus on this one particular issue. Again, we all have to sometimes pick a hill and die on it. And I'd rather die on this one than a lot of the other ones that are going on. And it's just great to see people who, like yourself, who are, just so adept at this and just so well-versed and able to articulate the things that maybe the not so fortunate can probably do as just equally as well. So it's great to have people like you sort of leading the pack and continuing this fight, because I don't want to see people lose this opportunity. And so you play a big part in that, and I appreciate everything you do. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
Phillip.
What you wrote in the Safer Nicotine Wiki direct message group yesterday, do you remember that when I said I'm so glad you'll be joining us?
I said I agreed to do it so I get to meet you.
That might have made my 2023 and 2024. And the reason that I agreed to join this show is basically because I felt like we could, really meet a lot of amazing people and learn a lot of new things about how we can go about advocating with a certain, how we can advocate better, but also just meet the kind of people that have different perspectives that could be really helpful. And above all else, let's just say that you've really inspired so many people, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so grateful to meet you finally. If you better not be a stranger,
we'll get her back on. We will get Skip back on.
Thank you, Skip.
Thanks, Phillip.
Jeffrey.
Well, Skip, you know that I have a lot of respect for you, and I think that you're brilliant, first of all, as an advocate and as a person, and more especially. And I'm really glad that the ability that you had for making people cry with a pen, now it became an eloquent writer for so many things that are really important to us. And you have been doing that, spectacular with that, and your writing is spectacular. And I really hope that you have a lot of success during this career as an advocate. I know that you have been here for long, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to be here for a lot of time, because we do have a fight ahead. And even though that we think sometimes that, that this is gonna, this is too big for us, where this is never gonna end. It is gonna end, and it's gonna be requiring a huge effort from all of us. And I'm really glad that you are in this battle with us.
Yeah.
And
honored to be in it with you.
Thank you. And nothing about us without us.
All right, everybody. I thank you, everybody in chat, for joining us tonight. We will see everybody next Wednesday. Not sure who our guest is, but we'll give you a heads up during the week who will be present with us. Thank you again. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thank you, Phillip, and thank you, Jeffrey. And again, thank you again, Skip, for joining us. And we'll see everybody next Wednesday. Peace out.